Good evening and Happy New Year. This is the Town of Fairfield Conservation Commission acting as the Inland Wetlands Agency for January 4th, 2023. We're at the Fairfield Fire Training Center now. I'm calling the meeting to order and I'll take roll. Dabney Bowen's with us virtually, online. Brian Kane, myself, Lucas Thompson, Peter Hood, Richard Boucher, Jay Fain, Ms. Mahoney, Kate, and Ted Luxinger. I think we'll need to appoint one alternate. I'll have Kate be as the alternate for tonight because she participated in some of the things we talked about prior. And we'll go on to approval of the draft meeting minutes from the Inland Wetlands Agency meeting from December 7th, 2022. Do any commissioners have any questions, corrections, or issues with those minutes? Nope. Then I'll entertain a motion to approve them. Rick? Second, anyone? Brian? Okay. We go on to 4 applications for receipt. Number 1, WP-22-322 William Kenny Associates LLC, 2717 North Street, map 165, parcel 29. Placing existing residential driveway crossing within a regulated area. Significant application type. Public hearing petition received, no, as of 12/28/22. The petition period ends January 18th, 23. The last day for public hearing or decision is March 10th, 2023. The last regular meeting prior is March 1st, 2023. And the staff recommends scheduling public hearing for February 1st, 2023. Let's do that. Okay. Second one for receipt. WP-22-293 Zhao, 137 Woods End Road, map 145, parcel 70. Corrective action, replant stream bank with native plantings activity within a regulated area. It's the last. There's been no public hearing petition received as of 12/28/22. Petition periods January 18th, 2022. Last day for public hearing or decision is March 10th, 2023. The last regular meeting prior is March 1st, 2023. Staff recommends tabling pending legal notice and departmental review. Number 5.
Can I have a
What's
question?
that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, do we need a public hearing for that application? It's pretty straightforward. I thought we had almost resolved this.
Yeah, we didn't recommend a public hearing.
No,
Okay, so it's, I thought this was on.
just for receipt. This is just
Oh,
for
okay,
receipt.
okay, thank you.
So,
I saw the thing above it and,
So we don't need to move on these in terms of.
no,
motion.
we're just receiving them today and the timing, by getting them today, the 65 days starts today. Okay? Roman numeral 5, the fee waiver requests. Number 1, WP-22-243, the Audubon Society of Connecticut, Inc., 314 Umpqua Road, map 180, parcel 314. Maintenance and expansion of an existing stone dust trails and installation of additional drainage and regrading for stormwater management within a regulated area. Applicant requests fee waiver of $960 application fee. Staff recommends approval of a $960 fee waiver request.
I need to recuse myself. Okay.
And this, Rich, is this the one you're, so we'll have Commissioner Fain, Commissioner Boucher are recusing themselves. For this one, I'm gonna appoint Ted as an alternate. Just for this one, and then you guys come right back on.
Sure.
Okay. All right, any,
I have just one housekeeping. Can someone explain to me, it says project funds are largely coming from the town of Fairfield? Just so I understand what that means.
Members of the board.
Hi.
would you mind,
Where?
ma'am, if you come up and then kind of zigzag into one of these 4 chairs up here, because the microphones are here and they pick it up. We don't have to press anything, but we got to get a little bit closer. And please, yeah, state your name and, yeah, record.
Joyce Lights, PLO, Connecticut Audubon Society. So the funds are coming through Community Development Block Grant funding, which was authorized through the town of Fairfield.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, commissioners? Nope. Any motion to?
Motion to approve the fee waiver.
Peter, okay, second, Kate, seconds, and that's to approve, yes? Okay, all those in favor of approving? Aye. Aye, Dabney's up there too. All right. Closed. All right, so now, before we move on, Jerry Alessi is here.
So I can step back.
You can step back. Kate is now.
Stay on, I'll go home.
We have a full. Which one?
From the public here, it said he couldn't hear.
Couldn't hear. All right, we'll do our,
I'm sorry.
it's okay. We'll do our best to speak up. It's our first night here at this facility. We'll get used to it. I apologize in advance. If anybody can't hear anything back there, let us know because it's our first day here as well, so we're getting used to it. It's these devices up here are supposed to pick the voices up, but when you're close by. So if you're presenting, we'll ask you to come up here. There's 3 or 4 chairs that are here. But if you're in the public just listening and you can't hear us, no issues. Just let us know that you can't hear and we'll try to accommodate. Thank you. Okay. We're done. Thank you. So number 5, Roman 5, fee waiver request number 2. WP-22-293, Zhao 137 Woods End Road, map 145, parcel 70, corrective action, replants stream bank with native plantings, activity within a regulated area. The applicant requests fee waiver of $1,780 application fee, $2,890 permit fee, and $600 site disturbance fee. The staff recommends approval of the fee waiver request for $820 application fee, for $2,890 of the permit fee, and $600 site disturbance fee, leaving the applicant to pay $960 as the application fee. Any questions?
To approve
Okay.
the fee with staff recommendations.
Staff recommendation. Jay makes a motion to approve. Anybody second? And Peter would seconds. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Dabney's aye. I saw her up there. Very good. That's good. That's good. That was a really good job. All right, 6 bills and bond releases. Number 1, IWP 2020-21-08, Patterson Club, 1118 Cross Highway. Restore violation disturbances for clear cutting wooded swamp and regrading near holes 3 and 4, Merwin's Lane, close paren, within a regulated area. Request of Walter Stapleton for full bond release of $39,200. The staff recommends partial release of $34,200, leaving $5,000 bond for invasive removal and plant survivability.
Motion to approve the bond release as per staff recommendation.
Was
there an inspection?
Jay,
No, no, it's an inspection.
anybody second Jay's motion?
I'll second.
Dabney, thank you, Dabney. All in favor? Okay, Dabney's in favor, very good, that nice, moves it along. Number 2, IWP 2016-17-3, 333 Umpqua Road LLC, 333 Umpqua Road. Demolish existing structures and construct 2 new residential apartment buildings. parking and drainage within a regulated area. Request of Walter Stapleton for final bond release of $5,150. Partial bond release of $44,000 was completed in September 2021. Staff recommends the final release of $5,150. Any questions? It's all done there, Tim? Is that, yeah, okay. Rick makes a motion to approve the staff recommendations and release the bond. Second by anyone? Second by Jay Fain, Commissioner Fain. All in favor? Aye. Dabney's an aye. Very good. Okay. Roman 7, legal enforcement actions. Number 1, it was continued show cause hearing, Janine Norwood, 120 Wakeman Lane, Southport, map 246, parcel 5C. Clearing of wetlands, vegetation, and deposition of material within a wetland. Tim, have you had any contact with?
I do, I took a call from Ms. Norwood this morning. She is working with a landscaper professional to develop the mitigation planting plan for the disruption of the area. He had been sick for a while through the holidays. She expects to have that to us next week.
Okay.
Don't think we
We don't, yeah, we don't do anything.
Like to at least say that cap this, I mean, it's been going on for a long time, extend this for another 30 days, and after another 30 days, consider escalating the violation.
Long, 7 months.
Been a long time.
I think 8 or 9 was in the spring.
Yeah.
It's gotten too old. I don't know what couldn't have been accomplished in this length of time. Sorry, too much.
Okay. What would be the result? Refer it to the town attorney?
Good.
Yeah.
That'd be the next
That'd be
step.
the only, that's the only step for us. Yeah, it's already there. We have the lien on there already. So give it another month and then refer it or do it now?
Refer it. Refer it.
Fine, yeah.
It's in a can.
Yeah, well, I can't bring a motion, but if somebody wants to bring a motion and,
I'll make a motion to refer it to the town attorney, not continue it.
okay, and
I'll second.
There you
a
go.
lot of seconds there, okay. Pick a second. I think everybody's second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so, refer to the town attorney, and if Bruce Jackson, her attorney, whoever calls and say it's not with us anymore, it's with the town attorney.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Number 2. Again, continued. Cynthia O'Malley, 47 Quaker Lane, map 12, parcel 318, conducted filling, grading, landscaping of a mapped wetland and regulated area without a permit. Can you tell us something there, Tim?
I did get a call from Alexandra Mock yesterday. I have not returned it yet, so I don't have an update on that.
All right,
Follow, I do owe her a call. I'll follow up with her tomorrow.
all right, so we can continue that for 30
Well,
days.
I kind of feel the same way. This has been going on since spring also, and I'm not sure we issued an order on this, Tim?
It's so long, I forget. Definitely a notice of violation. Did I issue? I think just an NOV.
Yeah, I'd like to escalate this to issue an order to restore the,
Corrective action order.
yeah, corrective action. And I think we would like to see replans within 90 days. I think that's fair. My motion.
Anybody want?
Motion, I'll second that,
I'll make the motion.
and I'll second it.
Any discussion? No? Those in favor? Dabney? Were you, yep, okay. So it's, so you'll be able to prepare that, Tim, and give them the 90-day timeframe?
Yep.
Okay. And number 3. Well, okay, show cause hearing, JA 137 Woods End Road, map 145, parcel 70, deposition filling material within wetlands, watercourse, disturbance of natural indigenous character land, ground disturbance, and conducting a significant activity within regulated area. this kind of goes with the ones that we received. So does this, should this stay here till that's done, or can we just let this go
We just
now?
left it on there because we hadn't
Received,
received
okay.
the application, so the application's received.
So I,
The agency just voted on the,
on the fee waiver, so it's,
that'll come.
that one's moving along, so I don't think that needs to be there anymore.
Pull that out.
Okay, yeah, just close that one completely. I don't even think we need a motion for that. It just should be happening. Okay. All right. Staff reports in Roman numeral 8. Any, just anything there, Tim, you wanna?
Yeah, I guess the big takeaway there is the 0 for violations for December.
Were you away?
So that's anyone who didn't get in trouble. Number 2, sidewalks, I believe there'd be only one.
Okay,
Want to stick with
I think it would be Sunday,
Is-
Sunday morning.
morning?
Is that okay for you commissioners who want to partake?
Up with that till winter.
Okay,
The date. We say 8th or the 15th? Any preference? I don't know. I think there's a
No, I-
President's Day coming up somewhere, right?
February.
That's February?
I think it's February.
Is it Martin?
Martin Luther King Day is the 16th.
The 8th, 8th or the 22nd?
well, January 8th and a couple, yeah, so this Sunday, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The 8th.
The 8th.
Yeah. What,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
what did we, when did we get there? 8:30? 9?
8:30.
8:30.
8:30, right? Is that what we did? Yeah, 8:30 is good. Um, So that was number 2 under Roman 8. Number 3, save the date Commissioner Training, January 18th, 2023. We just got an email, but Commissioner Payne, you can, you said you weren't able to do it that day, so we'll have to reschedule. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay. So we'll find a convenient date for everybody and we'll do that. And thanks again for offering to do it.
Yeah, thanks again for offering. I want to second that.
And Tim, did you have a 4th one you wanted me to add there?
Yeah, 4th one was the discussion regarding the participation by experts in the field of pervious pavement. Should be prepared for the February 1st meeting or by the February 1st meeting, but to avoid doubling up, I was going to suggest a different Wednesday.
Sure. So if we have
Piggybacking on the back of
Another meeting.
a conservation meeting that might be shorter.
which I think would be the 18th. February 15th. Be a Wednesday night
Okay,
after the meeting,
sure.
if-
Or if there isn't a meeting, that'd be better. It's about, you said about a 60 minutes to a 90-minute
yeah,
presentation? Okay. So,
we'll set it for that for now.
okay, that sounds good.
What?
All right. Public hearings, Roman numeral 9, number 1, WP 22-313, Town of Fairfield, 40 Riverfield Drive, map 177, parcel 15. Maintenance of a drainage swale water course within a regulated area on Riverfield Drive, Palmetto Drive, and Doreen Drive. The decision may be made if the public hearing is completed, the hearing may be continued. The original 35-day public hearing timeframe to complete the hearing ends on February 8th, 2023. A 65-day time extension may be provided by the applicant, so a further public hearing continuation to April 14th, 2023 is possible. Potential continuation date is February 1st, 2023. Staff recommends approval with conditions. So you can come up here because the microphones are here. You can bring your stuff up and we'll start. And just for anybody that came in later, there's a sign up sheet. If you haven't signed up, please sign up. It's okay, so it's there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe while we're waiting, in terms of the sign up, probably housekeeping, I'm gonna guess that is attendance in terms of safety, and it's not
Not an attendance.
in terms of coming to the meeting.
Right.
That's FOI stuff. I'm gonna guess that they need to
The
know.
building.
Did you
Yeah.
understand my email?
Yep.
I was getting at.
Okay. Hello. Good evening. Here.
Billy Curley, the engineering manager, and project in front of you, I just want to give you a little bit of an update. A few months ago, this project was taken before the Conservation Commission, knowing that we would have to return to Inland Wetlands Commission regarding the maintenance of drainage channel. We have neighborhood support or tolerance for the project to help reduce the flooding. Engineering has discussed the project with most of the abutting owners. We researched drainage and conservation easements. We discussed and had a field meeting with Lauren Goff of 40 Riverfield Drive, owner of the property, where the good portion of the work taking place. And also met with Charlie Morris and Mr. Benson to discuss the project from the original flooding complaints and provided them with updates. Let me introduce you, making his Conservation Commission debut, Anthony Santiago from the Engineering Department, and he'll do a presentation.
Good evening.
And shown here is a portion of the intermittent waterfront that runs between, like Mr. Hilda said, the majority is on 40 Riverfield Drive that runs between Riverfield and Palmetto Drives before it ultimately flows into a head wall on 43 Dory Drive that's on your far left over there. Previously, a couple of properties away previously piped water course that daylights, and on its way to where it shows on the map, it flows pretty steeply. That is until you get to about 57 and 71 Palmetto Drive, where the channel gets noticeably flatter and less defined. It's at this point that stormwater starts to flow outside the banks, causing flooding issues for these properties and the surrounding area. The engineering department, along with the Department of Public Works, have conducted site meetings at the request of the owners of 57 and 71 Palmetto Drive to assess property damage after heavy rainfalls over the past couple of years. What we're proposing is to restore the water course and to widen it to an average of 4 feet. The town would use a small excavator to enlarge the channel and hand dig in areas that are more sensitive. The soil dugout will store this channel that will then be used to build up the channel walls for greater protection for the surrounding property owners. Engineering will provide staff to perform site monitoring.
Apologies. Engineering will provide staff to perform site monitoring duties and to ensure that the state guidelines for erosion and sediment control are followed. We believe that this should help contain and divert the stormwater away from the residents' yards. We've developed two possible options to develop these channels to contain stormwater. Option A, if you can see on the map where all of the black dots and proposed spot elevations are, that would be creating a new channel. We had brought this up with the owner, Lauren. My apologies. Creating a new channel would amount to disturbing more wetland property than it would be to restore the existing channel. So we propose or recommend to restore the existing channel.
That's option B, that we met with the property owner, and that was his preference as well, and he'll probably make a comment on that as well. I just want to make it clear. So go.
What on the table is just improving the existing drainage course.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
In terms of the property owner?
No, actually, Mr. Goff is the one has most of.
Lauren Golf, by the
Yeah,
way.
No.
Okay.
That's where most of the work is done and in the stream. Mr. Morris and Mr. Benson, when it overflows, unfortunately, their properties are lower, and so they're getting the brunt of it. That's why I think.
They walked in the, for our sidewalk.
So by keeping the existing channel, you have a potential for it to go straight at the curve there and jump that. Are you gonna firm that up more, or are you gonna prevent that?
With excavating the spoils, we use the spoils to reinforce the bank on the side. By making the channel deeper and slightly wider, we would get it so that it's the same capacity as the pipe upstream, so that it has a better chance of staying inside the channel. If we get 4 inches of rain in 4 hours, I don't know.
No.
But for most of the storms, we'll be able to control.
You'll armor that area, I guess.
Correct.
Has this been done before? And is an existing water course, have you maintained it in the past like this?
This one here in particular, it's been a while since we've maintained it. I've been with the town 30-something years, and if we maintained it, it probably was at least a decade ago, if not before that. So I don't know, do you have any more, or that was pretty much?
That's.
Oh, okay, perfect time.
Armoring it?
Do use larger stones so that the velocity of the water won't push the dirt out of the way and it won't jump over. I assume you size the riprap according to your velocity calculation.
Yes.
A couple questions I have. How are you gonna armor the bottom of the channel? Are you gonna use any type of stone or any type of,
A lot of the existing channel has stone and boulders already that have not been carried out or eroded. When we go to excavate, we're gonna put them to the side and then we'll put them back. One of the reasons why we also chose option B is it maintains the same flow path that's been that way. We checked on our 1968 topo maps, and for the most part, there's a slight twist, I think, because a tree has kind of grown and pushed it off to the side, but it follows pretty much the same patterns as the 1968 topo. So we're really just looking at maintaining it, and while with maintaining it, trying to improve and reduce flooding.
there's no value to putting some type of geotextile, some type of fabric on the bottom to keep the minimum?
Well, that's a good point. On our detail, it does show that, and certainly around the curves or in the areas where there is potential for scour, we will definitely put the geotextile on the bottom.
The other question I have is, if you give me any thought to incorporating any check dams into the design, I know that, try to slow the water down or at all. I know it has a double-edged sword. If you put the check dams, it's gonna act as an area for deposition and possibly spread it out. On the other hand, it's gonna slow the water down. So, and, it's a balance.
That's a good point. Matter of fact, we were talking about that earlier. With the stone check dams, if it's an area that's wide or if it happens to overflow, we could maybe slightly direct it at a slight angle rather than completely perpendicular. And so that way we do the less harm. But also the stone check dams will be mainly for the lower portion of the channel. We wouldn't build it all the way up where we create a true dam, because in this case, we don't have the room.
We've done in the past is use larger boulders in the stream channel itself to cast as energy dissipators. I don't know, just something that does work because it doesn't move, but possibility.
Another possibility we're going to look at is to stagger. So instead of having a complete
Yeah,
perpendicular,
Put them in like a knot.
right, so it kind of meanders around.
It also takes some of the energy out of the water.
And just to highlight here, the work will be done not by a contractor, but by DPW. We will hold a pre-construction meeting. I think that's one of the conditions of approval anyway, with the conservation staff. We'll meet, we will invite the neighbors as well, lay out everything, what's going to be where it is. Because as I said, there are some people that they have they have some impact and they're not the ones getting flooded. So it really takes a whole cooperation, and we're sensitive to everybody's needs. This is the best plan I think that we could come up and develop. Sure.
Any other questions?
It's really needed. The
Yeah.
site walk was, I mean, I don't have much to say. It's really badly needed. And I sympathize with those homeowners that are getting flooded.
Thank you. I'm sure they appreciate that. Thank you.
Did speak with us when you spoke the last time, and the neighbors do feel that this flooding has been compounded by this 10-year gap of not maintaining that area. It had been better before this 10-year.
And historically, as I said, I've been here 32 years with the town, and I can tell you that from like 1995 to 2005, we didn't get too many storms, but certainly from 2018 to 2022, there were 4 hurricane remnants. We got the rain bomb or whatever you want to call it from 2018. So there's been probably 5 or 6 notable storms that have certainly contributed and unfortunately have flooded out yards, basements, garages. So, yeah.
Our everyday storms. There was a
Best
comment, I remember
seatbelts.
there was a comment a few months back, and I remember someone said rain is not rain anymore. The everyday storms we're getting are a little crazy.
Seem to be higher in intensity, and whether that's climate change or something else, but the data shows that unfortunately we're probably headed for more, correct?
Semi-annual 100-year event.
They've revised those, by the way. From 2014, University of Cornell, the 100-year storm, just a little educational tidbit, but 7.2 inches in a 24-hour period. They've upped it to 8.4.
Gosh,
Just to show you,
don't do the math on that, but it's a pretty high percentage.
here to answer any other questions or?
Vegetation, any use for stabilize, you can use any seed mix or anything that.
We would probably use a hydro seed mix if that was the case. For the most part, and again, if you've done the walkthrough, there wasn't too much. There's one area that's very grassy. And that one, I don't think we're going to touch that much of. And then as you get to the lower part, there's a lot of leaf litter, natural debris from fallen branches, stuff like that. We probably just use the same, but we can always, if there's an area that we feel has the potential for runoff issues, yeah, we would hydro seed. Yep.
So there's the public works that would be doing the work. Is that schedule? When would it occur? When would it start?
Well, one of the conditions of approval was try to avoid a prime springtime. I don't know if it has to do with amphibians or the beginning of spring season. So with approval, and we get favorable weather. Now, people might think today is a favorable weather, but it really isn't. We were looking for that 30-degree day where the ground's firm, but you can still, excavate and do work if we were doing it in the winter. Sometimes in January or February, you get 5 or 10 days of no rain. That, because like right now, even if tomorrow was a nice day, we wouldn't want to do it because of the rain.
The estimated time.
Do the work, I would imagine,
2-3 weeks.
that would be really, that's with any delays. It would probably be 2 weeks at most, I would think. 1 week to redo all the channel and maintenance. And then the rest would be all the touch up, putting the geotechs out, putting the rocks back, doing any plantings, seeding.
Right, okay. So it won't be like a month or 2 in front of people's, okay.
Mhm.
Commissioners, any other questions? Anyone?
Close the public hearing.
Okay. Motion.
I just want to, do you want to let the public speak? I don't know if they want to, or if they feel that it's pretty good, that's up to them. I didn't want to cut their turn since they came here.
I'll just say, I'm Lauren Goff. They've been great. They were like, came out and explained everything really well, took me back, out in the back and showed me all the different options. And we talked about trying to do the best thing for all the neighbors. And we decided that kind of plan B without rerouting it, just kind of digging out the original swell. The other thing I will just say is I think right where the drainage is, it seems like, I don't know who the property owner is, but they blow leaves into there constantly. They have their landscapers blow leaves, which if that's blocking the drainage, that's definitely probably one of the biggest attribution detail to the flowing. So, but it's been a good experience from my front, and just want to thank both of you guys for being so patient and, explaining everything.
August, September. all the landscape is supposed to be someplace else.
That's a real,
Neighborhood.
that's tough.
Something like that.
Yeah, I know I get my landscaper many times to try to take as much of the leaves as they can, but
Somebody drops a note in the mailbox.
no, I know.
Let somebody know.
Charlie, did you want to speak or say anything, or you're good? It looks like,
Want to say anything?
Well,
Are you happy with what they showed you?
I'm sorry, I couldn't pick up because I got to hear him, but I still couldn't hear you.
Are you comfortable with what the,
you're in favor of the project?
like it? You like what they want to do?
But I couldn't pick it up, I'm sorry.
Charlie, they said, I'm the neighbor, Charlie, I'm Lauren. They're gonna just dig out more of that tunnel, so,
What are they actually gonna do? See, I can hear you, good.
yeah, so what they're gonna
I'm
do,
sorry.
no, that's okay. They talked about just digging out the additional swale, the existing swale as much as they can, digging it out and cleaning it up.
Make a gully.
Yes,
Yeah.
make a gully.
See, now it's filled in and it doesn't, and go, from this point here. And I can show you better from here. Here I am here. One.
Yep.
See, it comes in off of Mill Plain Road.
Yep.
Okay. When it gets down here, it's gotta go around trees. I don't want any trees down though.
They're not moving any trees. He,
Good.
without a doubt, the subject matter expert, and he works the hardest. He's out there all the time cleaning the leaves. Like, this
I'm
guy-
cleaning the brook all the time,
yeah,
but I can't keep
on
up
paper.
with it.
they're not moving any trees.
But they gotta dig it down
they're good.
because it filled up from Mill Plain Road. It comes all the way down and then it stops right there
Yep,
and leaves a pile like this.
right.
And then the water floods out the house next door. They're getting flooded. Then it can't get by that point because down there's a grill on the vein. You
Yep.
know what I mean? That's on Doreen
Yes,
Drive.
Pre-rack.
It plugs up and the water there's no channel at all to get to that vent.
We're gonna make a channel, okay?
Okay.
Good.
If you know, because I'm sorry, I could
know that.
never pick you up that way, okay?
Yep.
You know,
I met Mr.
you know what it is. If I can talk to somebody there, I can't tell what they're doing, you know.
Yeah.
basically.
He's the hardest working neighbor.
I'm talking about in the yard, I'm talking about elsewhere. I mean,
There since they're there and only a hurricane stops it and then floods up the area. So otherwise it's pretty good. Okay?
And a
Thank you.
veteran.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Charlie.
Did well.
Yeah.
Support, anybody here, opposed to this? Anybody online opposed to this?
All I want to know, did they agree to do it? Yeah, that I gotta hear.
Okay, here it is.
Huh? Is that okay? You- I'm sorry.
So Jay's got the motion to close the public hearing and Jerry's, seconds it. So the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve as,
Okay. Anybody second that? Peter seconds that. Discussion? Comments? All in favor? And Dabney's in favor as well. And it's been approved. They're gonna be able to do it, okay? All right.
thank you, Joe.
No, don't apologize. Thank you.
Now is he?
Hmm?
Now.
So now, public hearing number 2. You,
So we've already acted on it on her application.
yeah, we acted on.
She came in late.
She came in,
Late.
okay. Right, so I'll do 2 things. I'll announce this and, council get prepared, but I'm gonna also, for a second, talk to somebody as well, okay? So WP 22-258, Fairfield Housing Corporation, 980 High Street, map 77, parcel, 340, construction of 40-unit assisted multifamily affordable housing development within a regulated area. Decision may be made if the hearing is completed or the hearing may be continued. The original 35-day public hearing timeframe to complete the hearing ended December 7, 2022. Of the allowed 65-day time extension, a 28-day time extension was granted until January 4th, 2023. A further 37-day time extension may be provided by the applicant, so a further public hearing continuation to February 10, 2023 is possible. Potential continuation date is February 1st, 2023. Council had already stated to me earlier that the applicant is amenable to a continuation if needed. Is that correct, Council?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Brian Leclerc, we consent as staff recommends to another continuation to the February 1st date.
Thank you, Council. Right. For just a second, I just need to discuss one thing with an applicant on a different matter. Mr. Zhao, we went through all of your matters earlier, just to let you know that your fee waiver request was approved and your fee would be the $960 for all of that. And you're no longer in the legal enforcement action phase. You're now in simply the preparing for the permit phase. So you don't have to be here. It's all done. Just keep in touch with Tim. Well,
That's not for tonight.
yeah, well, no, she's asking for the fee waiver again, but we've already ruled on it and we feel that that's as fair as we can go because really it's almost $5,000 little, and we've reduced it to $960. Okay? Not right now, ma'am. I'm sorry. Just wanted to let you know that that's what occurred. Okay? So now we have the Fairfield Housing Corporation, 990 High Street, and we're in the public, we're still in the public hearing section. Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Brian Leclerc representing the Fairfield Housing Corporation. Am I allowed?
This might be better. Just to
Pick up all the sound.
Doesn't amplify, just picks up. Again, we have our team present this evening. It includes Brian Baker, our licensed professional engineer, William Kenny, landscape architect and wetland soil scientist, Jay Soltis, licensed environmental professional, LEP. And I know that Mr. Ginter, who the commission retained, is also, he's your engineer. He's present this evening as well. And as you'll recall, the commission retained Mr. Ginter as an expert consultant. And back at the end of November, on the 25th November, he issued a report. And he spoke at this last meeting of this body in early December. And since the last meeting, our team met with both Mr. Bishop and with Mr. Ginter and with engineering and have come up with a revised plan set, making the changes suggested by Mr. Ginter to you in his report, including, most important, the relocation of the on-site detention pond as suggested by Mr. Ginter. Mr. Bishop does reference that in his December 20 letter to you, which is in your file. In addition, you also have correspondence from Mr. Baker dated December 20th, which addresses all of Mr. Ginter's comments up until that date at the end of December. Some additional comments by Mr. Ginter, which we'll come to in a minute. And I'm going to begin just by briefly recalling several of one witness in particular, Mr. Soltis, the LEP. As you'll remember, he did an analysis and it was submitted. It was rather lengthy. And we deferred any questions that you as the commission may have to him given the volume of the report. He performed a phase 1 ESA, environmental site assessment, indicating the pesticides he found on the site were just around the foundation of the buildings. They've been there for decades, are not mobile. And Mr. Soltis, they will be removed from the site during construction, correct?
That's correct.
And most important, those pesticides don't go anywhere. They've sat there and they will sit there unless they're removed, correct?
Right.
And-
Basically, we're following the DEP guidance for all this.
And will you be on site to monitor the pesticides when they're removed from the footprint of the building?
Yes.
Yes.
And other than that, I don't know if you have any questions, any of the commissioners have any questions of Mr. Soltis regarding his phase one and his analysis of the site. Thank you. Next is Mr. Baker, Brian Baker, sitting to my right, your left, the professional engineer. And just a few cleanup questions, and then I'll have Mr. Baker talk about the revised plan that follows the suggestion of Mr. Ginter. At the first evening of the hearing, Mr. Baker, additional calculations were requested by one of the commissioners, correct?
Which calculations are we talking?
They were in the drainage calculations. There were certain drainage. You've performed different additional calculations in your submission of the second plan as you reviewed it.
Correct.
And submitted it. And did you consult with the town engineer? Because I know they had several comments about the drawings, what they wanted to see on the drawings for their purposes.
Yes, we consulted with the town highway or the town engineer with Mr. Hurley and Mr. Santiago via conference call, also with Mr. Ginter, and have incorporated their recommendations.
So their recommendations of engineering are all on the revised documents as well.
Correct.
And regarding the permeable pavement, you've performed on-site testing of the soils on this property, correct?
Yes,
And that's I think it's called a double ring, if I'm not mistaken. That's a very sophisticated test that Mr. Trink has cited in his letter, correct?
correct. A double ring infiltrometer test for permeability rates.
And that's not your standard test that would be performed on most sites. That's a more advanced study of the soils, correct?
Correct. That's not typical. It's not done often. More often, it's just a simple perk test or a borehole test. But you get a more conservative rate with the double ring infiltrometer test, which is what we performed subsequent to the perk tests.
Does your on-site testing using that double ring test and the testing of the soils indicate that they will drain and that they are suitable for permeable porous pavement?
Yes,
And following your meeting with the staff and Mr. Ginter after the commission's last meeting in December, you relocated the detention basin area on the site, correct?
yes.
Could you just walk the commission through the revised drawings that they all have and show them where it has been relocated to, how the size has changed, et cetera?
Yeah. Again, for the record, Brian Baker, with Civil One, licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut, also certified professional in stormwater quality and certified professional in erosion and sediment control. So yes, based upon Mr. Ginter's review letter, some of the bigger items, which I will highlight, biggest would be, he requested that we look at relocating the detention basin. If you recall, the detention basin was in this upper northeast corner in the wooded area, and it also handled water that came from off-site, from the streets and the yards to the north. And he indicated if we were to take a look at if we could fit a detention basin within the open lawn area, west of the wooded area, and still provide decreases in all the design storms to the wetlands. And then also still provide you with a model showing our conformance with the 2 and 10 guidelines that you require, and we have done so. So the basin is now just below the fire truck turnaround area in that open lawn area. That reduction by moving that detention basin in that new area, we've got a reduction in the overall construction activity in that wooded area of 7,637 square feet. And we're saving about 17 trees in that area by not constructing the basin in there. Additionally, as far as the work in the upland review area or your wetland regulated area, that's been reduced by 2,981 square feet. So originally it was 9,905 square feet down to 6,924. That's about a 30% decrease in the area of the activity within the wetlands regulated area. So that's down to about 26% of the regulated area is what we're impacting. 74% is what's remaining intact. And again, those impacts are now relegated to the open lawn area
So that's, we believe that that is a significant improvement. Um, some of the other modifications, we can talk about the actual underground units. Originally, we had storm trap units. We changed it for a retain it unit, slightly different different manufacturer, gives a little more capacity. That allowed us also to raise the outlet structure off of the bottom of those concrete units by another 3 inches, so we have more water quality volume in the stone reservoirs underneath the parking area. So that was an improvement. Recommendation was made to remove we had some overflow piping out to High Street, and also our temporary sediment trap that was originally designed in the area of this building B3 had an outlet out to High Street. In accordance with Mr. Ginter's recommendation and discussions with the engineering department, they felt that was unnecessary. That was a carryover from the previous application, the previous engineer and engineering department reviewed. So that has been eliminated also. So we don't have any tie-ins or overflow out to High Street.
So,
Sure.
sorry to interrupt you.
Yep.
Just to be sure, so the overflow, the town engineer believed is unnecessary?
Previous town engineer Laura Pooley, who had reviewed it, suggested sort of this as a belt and suspenders measure to put a pipe above the 100-year storm
Right.
in the events and run that out to High Street. And I don't know, if there was pressure from Mr. Carey at that point, who was happened to live down in the corner of this wetland area. But we acquiesced and said, sure, we would put it in. It was over the 100 storm event. We feel it's not necessary and actually could end up causing other problems out on High Street. And that's why it's been eliminated.
And for the clear, that was never our idea, the applicant's idea. That was something that engineering through conservation had us do. And this engineering, our current engineering department, as well as Mr. Ginter, agree with us that that should not have been there.
One of the comments was from Mr. Ginter also was on the grassed fire truck turnaround area. We had a fiber soil specified, which is fibers mixed into the topsoil. He asked us to provide some specifications of that meeting, H20 loading for the fire trucks. In trying to track that information down from the manufacturer, it was difficult to get. So we're no longer using that manufacturer. So what we've done is we're replacing that with a grass pave product. So it's basically a plastic grid that sits over pervious material. The grass pave is then filled in with soil and planted, and that meets all the requirements for H20 loading in that turnaround area. So that not only is it called out on the plan, but in on the detail sheet, a detail for grass pave is provided. Then there was, as far as at the outlet of the detention basin, there's a pipe and a riprap pad. We had shown an earthen level spreader. A recommendation was made to put in a concrete curb level spreader or something more permanent so the water does not find a low spot in that level spreader. So we've done so. We've showed a detail for that and called it out. And we were also asked to look at the velocity of the water in a 25-year storm going over that level spreader after it comes out of the detention basin. And the velocity is 0.3 feet per second. So it's well below what we would typically consider erosive velocities over land, which would be 5 feet per second or show you the switch to the erosion control plan. So obviously the major difference here, again, in alignment with the fact that we removed the detention basin from this upper area, we don't need to construct that. And now we can use the proposed detention area
for our temporary sediment trap. And that is adequately sized in accordance with DEP guidelines. Also allows all of the drainage for the site to be drained into that temporary sediment trap. And then obviously there's no requirement for drainage to be, or the temporary sediment trap in the area of building B3. The concern from Mr. Ginter is you excavate that out, use it as a temporary sediment trap. Then when you go back in to construct the building, you have to bring in structural fill. In this case, that area is left undisturbed and we won't need to put the temporary sediment trap in that area. We're going to use the existing detention basin area. Then at the end of construction, when the site has been stabilized, any sediment gets removed, the permanent outlet structure goes in and gets planted in accordance with Mr. Kenny's revised landscaping plan. The comment was, so there's a request that we show at least 12 inches of separation, a foot of separation between the bottom of any of our infiltration areas and seasonal high groundwater. So we've provided you with on sheet C 5.2 is cross sections throughout the site. The groundwater on the northern side of the units is where it is closest, but we do maintain at least 12 inches of separation in all cases there. And we've basically modeled that based upon the test pits we did and the groundwater modeling that was observed. That groundwater drops off, it sort of follows the grade of the land. It drops off to the south side. So on the south side, we get more like 2.5 feet of separation to the bottom of the system through these, an average of 2.5. So we provided those sections to show that we do meet that separation criteria. As mentioned before, the remaining items in Mr. Ginter's letter mostly had to do with additional information to be added, most construction level details, spot grades, additional contour labels, details for the retaining wall. Yes, a hooded outlets be included with the catch basins, which we have added. Again, added the grass paved 2 details. But we did respond, and you have a copy of the response letter, item by item, and sort of whittled that down to his subsequent memo, which I'm sure he's here to discuss, where there are a few sort of housekeeping items that we believe are left over, but the vast majority of the items we have taken care of has been a somewhat significant redesign and moving that entire detention basin out of the wooded area. But it works, and we believe it's a significant improvement. I want to talk about, and we'll jump into one of the follow-up comments from Mr. Ginter's letter was, in my summary of the new drainage report, I provided you with volumes, pre and post development stormwater volumes. And what we specifically want to look at is, in volumes, is the 1-year storm. That's the most frequent storm you get, and that's the one you want to not have any real significant increases in. My original table did show a significant increase there. That was because I was using the volumes that were going into the detention versus what was coming out, sort of a net, what's falling on the site volume versus what's actually heading towards the wetland. So I provide them with those updated numbers, but we did go through them briefly, and we're looking at increases of 15 to 20% in volumes in the 1-year storm. Now, more significantly, as in accordance with the DEP manual, when you're doing detention and you have increases in volumes, which you will with every detention that you don't fully infiltrate, right, the stormwater, you're going to have increases in volume. What the DEP stormwater manual asks you to look at is stream channel protection criterion. Okay, because that is where you have increase, and this is right from the manual. The principal component to protect down gradient stream channels from erosion and sedimentation is meeting the stream channel protection criteria. Primary method to meet that criteria is to over-detain that 2-year storm, so that 2-year post-development levels are 50% or less than pre-development levels. So you knock those small storms down to where they're 50% of what they were previously. And in our summary table for the design flows, you can see that actually we're over-detaining. And for that 2-year storm, our post-development flow is 39% of the pre-development flow. So we do stream channel criteria. One could make the argument, and there is something in the manual, that if you don't have a stream on site, you don't need to meet the stream channel criterion, but we do. Eventually, at some point, this gets into catch basins and outlets somewhere, perhaps in a tidal wetland, but for argument's sake, we do meet the stream channel protection criterion. And then the question regarding increases in volume versus long-term viability of the wetlands and feeding the wetlands, what DEP asks you to look at is the groundwater recharge volume. So the objective of the groundwater recharge criterion is to maintain water table levels, stream base flow, and wetland moisture levels. We provided those calculations in our manual, and we show that we have over 7 times the required infiltration area to meet the groundwater recharge volume criterion, so that the water will be maintained to the water table, which ultimately is what feeds the wetlands. I also wanted to talk a little bit about questions that arose in the last hearing, specifically from Mr. Trinkus, about the soil's inability to infiltrate and that pervious pavement would not be suitable for this site. The fact of the matter is that infiltration practices this is from the DEP manual, and what Mr. Trinkus had quoted you was that a minimum field measure rate of 0.3 inches per hour is recommended as the practical lower limit for infiltration rates. What he left out was the next sentence in the manual. It says, lower infiltration rates may be acceptable provided that the water quality volume and drain time criteria are met. We meet the water quality volume criteria. We provide well in excess of that with the stone reservoirs underneath the infiltration areas. As far as the draining time criteria, what DEP says they want minimum draining time of at least 12 hours for pollutant removal. So they don't want it to flush out quickly into sand and gravel. It doesn't get renovated. So they would like it to be at least 12 hours and to drain within 48 to 72 hours after a storm event. Calculations are also in the manual, shows for our so for storm drainage area 1, which is the lower section of retainment units and the stone reservoir, the drainage time, and again, the calculations in there, is 37.7 hours. For storm rate drainage area 2, the upper drainage area, is 35.5 hours. So it's right in between the 12 and the 48 hours of the drainage time criteria. So based on that, and again, that was using a design rate that was half of our field measure rate. So our average field measure rate was 0.25 inches per hour. We use 0.125 as a safety factor. So we do meet the criteria. And again, just an overall statement about the manual, the stormwater, the DEP stormwater manual, their guidelines, and it says right in the front of the manual, the information and recommendations in this manual are provided for guidance and are intended to augment rather than replace professional judgment. The design practices described in the manual should be implemented by individuals with a demonstrated level of professional competence, such as professional engineers licensed in the state of Connecticut. And that's where we come in and we review the manual. If you want to weaponize the guidance manual, which opponents typically do, you can pick and choose any number of items out of there and say, well, doesn't meet this, doesn't meet that specifically. But the fact is, we do meet the intent of the guidelines. And the design will be protective of the wetlands. Again, with regards to the permeable pavement, from the 2004 guidelines, it's recommended for low traffic uses, residential uses with average daily trips of 500 or less, which is what we have. Small drainage areas. It's a 2.5 acre site. The entire site is a small drainage area. Also know that the 2004 guidelines, when they talk about pervious pavement, they had in their design recommendations a 1-inch sand filter. That was almost 20 years ago. Since then, the University of New Hampshire Stormwater Center has done a lot of work in revising that specification, and now there's a recommended 10-inch sand filter, and they've done a number of studies on the viability and the water, specifically the water quality or the water treatment provided by that pervious pavement area. Recommends water table at least 36 inches below grade. Where we had water on site was 50 inches and 66 inches below grade. So we back to the, since the University of New Hampshire, has been sort of the leader in this, their stormwater center, they do, sometimes they put out reports in their last report that talked about porous pavement, where they did some analysis, was the 2012 biennial report. And this is a quote from that report, which is available online. Porous pavement can be expected to have substantial pollutant load reduction. The water quality treatment performance of porous asphalt lot generally has been excellent. It consistently exceeds EPA recommended level of total suspended solids removal and meets regional ambient water quality criteria for petroleum hydrocarbons. The exceptionally high level of treatment is due in part to the use of a filter course in the sub-base design. So that sand filter made a significant improvement on removal efficiencies. They also provide a table in there which indicates at the pervious pavement that they monitored removed 99% of total suspended solids. 80% is the goal. So it moves 90%, 99% of total suspended solids, 99% of hydrocarbons, 75% of zinc, and 57% of phosphorus. Now, typically with a site like this, your pollutant load, it's mostly houses and the parking area. There's not a lot of landscape or lawn area, so you won't have significant loads from fertilizers, from phosphorus or nitrogen. So it's going to be TSS, hydrocarbon, and zinc, which the pervious pavement does a real good job of removing. And that's prior to it getting into the underground retention area, which still has 30 inches of separation above groundwater. So there, this does have, it's a good design. It is protective of the wetlands, and it's consistent with other designs wherein you have approved and other towns have approved use of porous pavement and underground detention. With that, I guess that's in summary what the revisions were. At some point, if you want to, happy to answer any questions. And at some point, I'm sure Mr. Ginter would like to speak on the revisions that went back to him.
Mr. Baker, would you agree that this revised plan that you've submitted and discussed tonight will have no adverse effect on wetlands or water courses either on or off the site?
I would agree with that.
And just for the commission's edification, the December 20 report submitted by Mr. Baker tracks, we okay with the recording?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. The December 20 letter by Mr. Baker tracks numerically identically to Mr. uh, uh, Ginter's report for your convenience. So if we've actually he quotes each comment by Mr. Ginter with his response to make it a little bit easier for you folks. Mr. Baker, again, have you seen Mr. Ginter's letter of yesterday regarding the few final comments that he had?
Yes,
And did you have a chance just to briefly speak with him about that?
I did.
And do you expect to have a meeting and further conversations with him to have his final points satisfactorily addressed over the next couple of weeks?
I do.
Questions, comments?
I have a question about the retained concrete chamber system. What kind of maintenance? I know that you, with the detention, how is this going to be maintained over the long term?
So it really will not require much maintenance because all the water is going to go through the pervious pavement. So any of your, any sands and we will not be sanding the site as with most pervious pavement sites.
Like, let's say it did get sanded.
Yep.
Then how would that be remedied? Because now that system would not really be functioning.
If there is, if somehow sediment were to get into the chambers, there are inspection outlets at all four corners with manholes where you can open those up and vacuum out any excess sediment.
And cost wise, like suppose that happened, that would go on to the owners of that property?
Yeah.
That would be the Housing
Housing.
Authority, Housing Corporation, which is going to retain this project as it does its other projects and does all the maintenance should any be required.
Could be an operations and maintenance manual of the whole project. Is that correct? That would specify cleaning and.
Cover that, correct?
You're correct. And that is included on the last set of the sheet, set of the plans is the entire operation and maintenance schedule for all the stormwater. So when they go in annually at a minimum for the basin, for catch basins to pump out the catch basin sumps, they'll also do the inspection reports at that time.
And then also for the lifespan of the catch basins, like 20 years out, like even with regular maintenance yearly, you're still seeing the same efficacy of these basins.
Yeah, it's stoning
Off,
concrete, so it'll be around a lot longer than I will.
so as long as it's maintained annually,
And as part of,
seeing any drop off degradation over time.
and if this is approved, and I believe I have it right in the manual, when you approve a plan like this, you're not approving it to work for the 2 days after they get their CO. You're approving this plan to work as designed. So if a catch basin fails, if a pipe gets crushed, it would have to be replaced in accordance with the original design plan. It has to be any storm drainage system that's installed and approved, whether it's this site or any other one. If you approve it as part of a special permit, it's got to be continually maintained in accordance with the original design.
Thank you.
Further questions? Obviously, it's an improvement in my mind over the previous plan. I think that little wooded area back there is worthy of protection. So I guess the first question, with this plan, would you consider putting a conservation easement or type of permanent protection over that whole area?
Yes, we've offered, and Mr. Kenny's going to speak with that. We've offered that conservation easement. Talk about that
I have
now.
a few other questions, maybe.
We'll come back to that, but yes, there was, and I want to say, I have the 0.8 acre conservation easement. A little under an acre will be a perpetual conservation easement. That's a good question.
So the second question I have related, and it's probably best for Bill Kenny, is there's this detention structure berm is in close proximity to a number of trees there. I don't know exactly what species are, but it would be important to me at least to have, if we're going to do this and implement this plan, to have protection for those trees and have some assurance or some evaluation that those trees would be protected and be able to survive the installation of the detention basin. I don't know if anybody's looked at that yet. I mean, it's a plan is relatively recent. And I guess the other thing that goes along with that, again, installation of the project and the basin will require a lot of disturbance, temporary disturbance, but disturbance allows foothold for invasive species. So my concern in the long-term aspect of this is that be some mechanism and a way to maintain basin and eliminate invasive species to protect that woodland area. I don't know if you've given any consideration to, you know, as this is going to be a nice area, having and incorporating some type of walk trail into the final design. So there's a passive recreation component to the project.
Zen garden.
To the invasives, you know, for the other project at Pine Tree, for instance, there are certain areas, and that's part of the routine maintenance of the project, is making sure we don't have invasives and what are designed as detention areas. They don't just become forests over time. And that's important, something that's done all the time by the authority.
Well, it's, you know, I've been involved with thousands of projects, and it always, up front, there's always a promise. It's the follow through that is important.
Maintain these, and they've done that. As you can see, if you go to Pine Tree, you'll see they've diligently maintained those areas with signage, with fences, with, and you had a suggestion about open, passive, passive recreation?
It's part of the value of a function of value of
Like a walking path or something like that. That I'm sure could be incorporated. Nothing's being built there. There's a conservation easement, so.
it obviously doesn't affect the wetlands, but it's.
Makes sense. Mr. Kenny, I'm going to call again. This is William Kenny, who's a landscape architect, soil scientist. And am I correct that the on-site wetland area does not provide a vernal pool habitat per your previous testimony and that of Mr. Clemens, who the commission also retained?
Yes, you're correct.
And have you made calculations and examined the changes in the plans and the moving, I should say, of the detention basin area to the west?
Yes.
And could you discuss them with the commission, your revised planting plan, your drawings, and
Sure.
the changes that have been made?
This is the planting plan that we prepared for the project. It's substantially similar to what we previously had, except the major change has to do with the disturbance in this northeast corner of the property. And that's probably about a third of an acre that was proposed to be disturbed. And there were 17 trees being removed. We were going to replant a little more than 20 trees, but so now this whole area is not going to be touched. And there's a new stormwater basin in this area. So the amount of planting is pretty much the same, reduction in trees by about 20. But with this new basin, it's going to create in the bottom, a new wetland area in the bottom of the basin. So we have added 250 herbaceous wetland rooted plants to put in the bottom of that basin. And then the banks around it, the non-wetland or upland areas are going to be seeded with a wildflower meadow mix. And then we're going to circle it with a fair amount of new tree planting. And we are showing along the base of the berm some new tree planting as well. If trees started to decline due to that berm, there are trees that are planted there that would take over for any pullback that you might see with the existing trees. That's pretty much the changes. So, but with regard to invasive species, invasive vegetation management, we have a whole set of specifications here about managing the woodland and the new planting. The conservation easement is this entire 1/3, roughly a third of the eastern portion of the property. So that's been proposed from day one to be a conservation easement. And then we have this management plan here, a narrative that spells out how that will be maintained. Methods are here, monitoring in the short term, up to 3 years of monitoring. Initial period, as Jay was saying, right after that disturbance, right after you replant, you want to really make sure that you're keeping out invasive vegetation while the native plants that you've put in take hold. And once they take hold, the amount of maintenance that's required drops significantly. But even so, we have a year one maintenance, 1 to 3, and then long-term beyond that, what should be occurring here to ensure that this area doesn't get overrun with invasive vegetation. It's impossible to remove all invasive vegetation, but you certainly can control it so that the natives can be the predominant species that are present.
Mr. Kenny, would you agree that this revised plan that we're talking about this evening will have no adverse effect on the wetlands or water courses either on or off site?
Yes, that's my professional opinion.
Thank you. I think further, Mr. Kenny. Thank you, commissioners.
Commissioner, any questions, comment?
I just have one quick comment. It's a nitpick and it's not relevant.
Excuse me.
The type of latifolia, I prefer not to see that installed because it tends to be aggressive.
Oh, the type of it. How about for water quality? Do you like it for?
Yeah, it just tends to be so aggressive. Tends to take over and that'll be the dominant thing there.
I was balancing, but we could take it out. I was balancing.
It's a nitpick, but
water quality.
yeah, but it's.
Please to take that out. That's like the latifolia is, now I'm forgetting the comment there. It's
Tails.
Cattail, there we go. Okay. I think that was keeping the weeds for you guys.
Yeah.
Yes. Emergent.
Latin, that's right. But so my team is here. I know Mr. Ginter's here, and I know they're going to be meeting with Mr. Ginter. So perhaps we want to pivot to him if he might be appropriate, if he has comment. I don't know if he does tonight, if he wanted to say anything.
Okay,
And then
sure.
we plan on then at the next meeting.
Okay.
By then, we'll have wrapped up the final comments he had. Make him some room here. I'll move this for you. No, you got the mic.
Yep, we're good. Good evening, David Ginter, professional engineer, readiness to need. So I have reviewed the revised drawings that were submitted just before the holidays. You saw my letter, I'm assuming, that was issued yesterday afternoon. I think primarily the majority of my comments that were made in the discussion that I had with you at last month's hearing have primarily been addressed. As Mr. Baker said, there's a couple of, more technical items that I commented on in terms of just some calculations and some things in the drainage report, but, big picture overall, this is a vast improvement, I think, from the plan that was initially submitted and reviewed. Two items that I think are still outstanding as the biggest items. I think they were touched on briefly. One of them has to do with soil testing and groundwater levels and depths to restrictive layers. I think there's a lack of soil test data in the western portion of the property. Mr. Baker and I discussed that earlier today. I think it would be nice to have a couple of extra test pits dug. Is it necessary to have those dug immediately tomorrow type of thing? No, I think, if everybody was inclined, I'm certainly willing to accept it as being done prior to issuance of a zoning permit. So that can be done, over the next couple of months if this was to be approved. Any minor changes to the drainage plan would be minor and would be upland and would not affect, the review that we've done here. And if something was to get really crazy, extremely high groundwater levels or something that would change the design completely. And the only impact I could see that having would be a change to the detention basin. This would be coming back to you folks anyway for a review because it'd be more work within the regulated areas. I don't foresee that happening. The test pits that are, in proximity, but not exactly where these infiltration practices are proposed, there is no evidence of groundwater, so I don't anticipate any being found. But I do recommend that a couple more test pits be dug in the area. The second piece that is still just structural certification that the retainment units can handle the fire truck loading underneath the parking lot. I have used those units on a lot of projects in the past. I believe from the information I've received, there might be a little too little cover proposed over those units to support the loading. So, Mr. Baker is going to be reaching out to the manufacturer to confirm what the minimum requirement is. Again, simple enough change. I don't think that's a big deal. It's not going to significantly impact or change the plans that are in front of you tonight. Mr. Fain, your comment about the arborist and the trees around the detention basin. I believe I made comments last month or my first letter regarding the trees along the perimeter, trees that are just off the property line where there's new screening proposed on the property lines. The swales are being proposed on the property lines. I was concerned about the impacts to the neighboring trees. They have offered, and I believe they put it in their drawings, to have an arborist be on site to analyze those trees. I would suggest that the arborist also review the trees in and around where the detention basin and the temporary sediment trap would be proposed as part of that. Outside of that, I here for any questions, but I think that this addresses, again, the vast majority of the major comments that I had last month.
Sure. Any questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
At this point, I think, you've heard from Mr. Ginter, you've heard us. They're going to be meeting with Mr. Ginter over the next 2 weeks. Those last, I think, half dozen, 11 points of techie stuff that.
Can I ask a couple of questions just to get it straight in my head? Maybe some of the commissioners might have this issue. Where are you in your timeline? This is a new application that come to us. Are acting as the inland wetlands agency, whether we approve or deny whatever. But if we approve, we need to go to zoning. Is that correct?
We have zoning approval already.
From a prior application?
Prior application, but the building, the configuration all remains the same. This is a inland wetlands change to the project, so we don't need to go back for that.
So once, if we were to approve, is there any further town body required? Will you be able to say?
Pull the permits and have the people on site and start the project, yeah.
Right, so I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Thank you. Dabney, oh, I'm sorry, yes, Commissioner Bowen is online. Well, Dabney, please.
Yeah, I just have a question. I would like to see proper consideration given for the wildlife during site work and construction. And would like to know what protections can be implemented during tree work.
Right, so yeah, there's been some indication that there's some wildlife in that back area, so a way to yeah, I'm not sure.
I understand.
Now,
Yeah.
I mean, now with the revised design, we are not taking trees down in that area, and there will be silt fence all along the perimeter of the construction. So we don't anticipate having to go into that area or impacting, the deer that are in there.
If you were,
But there will be trees taken down on the site. So I'm really
Not
referring.
within, yeah.
Cleanup, it's basically the cleanup. Bill can talk about, Mr.
Sorry.
Kenny can talk about.
okay, so Dabney, the question is if there are any trees taken down on the site, can we see if you want to identify them now? Something like that in that area?
Well, I'm really concerned and this may be nitpicking as well, but when we as a commission talk about wildlife in waterways, water courses and wetlands, we should be considering animals that are use those water courses and wetlands as part of their habitat, which will include animals that may or may not be in the upland review area or in the wetland area itself, but rely on those water courses and wetlands as part of their immediate habitat. So my question is, can the applicant take measures when tree work is being done to ensure the safe removal and relocation where possible of any animals in those trees?
Like if there were
Birds'
maybe-
nests.
Yes.
Okay,
Birds' nests, raccoons, squirrels, chipmunk, I mean, rabbits, there are all kinds of animals that live in trees.
Well, is that, Counselor, would you know, an the arborist that would be on site, is that part of his,
It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question that's raised because, as you know, we've outlined in our submittal letter that protection of non-wetland species is beyond the jurisdiction of this commission, any other animals. That said, you know, the arborist, I don't know how one would catch the raccoons, assuming there was a raccoon in a.
Well, there are, I mean, so first of all, just to, perhaps this isn't the time to have this kind of debate, but I think that there's some interpretation here that animals that are in wetlands and, you know, animals' habitats extend past where their nest is. So a bird, for instance, that nests in a tree that's outside of the upland review area, their habitat may include the upland review area or even the wetland and watercourse itself. So unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a lot of clarity in the statute or in case law to even more clearly define what that habitat is. My concern is more for the general wealth of the ecosystem of the entire property as it relates to the watercourse and wetland. So there are tree services. I know that Lewis provides this service sometimes of having someone go up in the tree and check to make sure that there are no nests, that there are no mammals living in that tree before the tree is taken down. It's also a service that can be provided by other private contractors, naturalists, and other wildlife specialists. So my question is, will the applicant do what is necessary to ensure the safety and protection of those wildlife during site work and tree work?
And in a way, Dabney, you're talking about the range of an animal as opposed strictly to talking about its territory.
No, I'm talking about the habitat of an animal. So
We're
there's
using different terms, but I agree, yeah.
yeah, I mean, a range is slightly different, but a habitat, you know, something bigger. Anyway, I think that because the community seems to have a great concern for the wildlife that have included this property as part of their habitat for many, many years, I'm just trying to echo their sentiments and see if there's any protection that has been considered for the wildlife that this neighborhood so dearly cherishes, and that we have, as a commission, have an obligation to protect.
So I was using the terms as we talk about them with domestic animals. So we're on the same page.
Mentioned in your letter that you brought it up, and reading that letter, you cited Connecticut Fund for the Environment versus Stanford 192 Con 7, 1984, with the proposition that little environment Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission are not little environmental protection agencies. Their environmental authority is limited to the wetland and watercourse area that is subject to their jurisdiction. That's a nice statement, but what we're talking about here, I think, is more in line with the two Connecticut general statute sections it cited. Sections, it's 22A-41C and D. And I think that's where Commissioner Bowen is saying that it's not so clear cut. Do you have any appellate or even Superior Court cases that define what range, what habitat, what areas of an animal can be taken into account by the wetlands, inland wetlands agency?
We can't provide that, but I think to make it easier for you, given the small number of trees that are coming down, we will have an arborist.
Okay.
Address Ms. Bowen's concern, if the arborist, he or she goes up and needs to relocate something, that'll be done. I think that's more practical,
Okay.
frankly.
And if the
Follow up on-
arborist doesn't offer those services, will an outside contractor be secured to offer those
We'll
services?
get one that does, or have a separate contractor for that purpose before the tree work is done to address that.
Did you hear that, Daphne? I don't know if.
Fantastic, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I
did.
would,
Thank
I
you.
would follow up on, I'd follow up on Luke said it, the commission is really charged to act in the public interest. We act as, our role is the conservation consciousness of the community. And I think that's what Dabney and Luke are getting at. Unfortunately for myself, I'm just speaking for myself, I'm pessimistic. I'm sorry, but the first bulldozer that comes in, the animals are gone. That's just what I feel. It's pretty close. A third of an acre is not much. They're not staying. Sorry, I'm just pessimistic there.
Commissioners, any other questions?
And I'm concerned also because, and it's not really relevant, it's not solvable, but we've had testimony that it could take decades, if never, to be back in its original state. It's just an unfortunate thing that I focus on.
Okay. Council, anything further?
Right, thank you.
I think that is for tonight.
I have a question though.
Okay.
I'd like to know if council still feels that the commission is continuing unabated, your own words, in its disparate treatment and lack of fundamental fairness. I mean, I'm looking, it seems to me that every meeting we have, there's a follow-up letter. It actually escalated your last one. We went from one member to several members made patently false statements. Sorry, that just didn't happen. Which on information belief influenced the agency's decision. I need to understand what you are talking about when you had a full and fair rehearing of the fee waiver request. When did this disparate treatment happen? Did it happen during the meeting? Did it happen between the meeting? Your position seems to be that we are talking during the, I went and watched the last one. I do not understand the comments you're referring to. I need you to explain to the public on the record what you are talking about when you say you're being treated badly, and because of the words that were uttered during the meeting, that influenced the decision to deny your fee waiver request.
I don't believe that's an appropriate discussion for the hearing.
What you said here.
It is, and it's not something that should be discussed as part of the public hearing. We put our position in there for the record. And given that fair housing law applies to this and every application, especially to us as a Fairfield Housing Authority, it's something we feel very strongly about the fair housing statutes, the federal laws. And we just asked to be treated fairly regarding our fee waiver, regarding documents that did not appear to have been filed. It was filed. The question was when it was filed and where it was filed.
Is that still in question?
No, it's part of the record, so it doesn't matter at this point. It is part of the record.
It matters because after each meeting, I'm expecting one after this one, I guess.
I don't know that you should.
Writing letters to the town attorney, which are distributed to the commission, and you are making statements that you clearly want in the record. And now you seem to be wanting to this is really.
This should be decided on the record presented on the
And you
application,
should make it part of the record.
on the technical portions of the record,
And I'm asking you technically.
the conduct of the commissioners. This should be decided on what the experts say and what the reports say. That's,
I'd like to clarify something I said at the last commission meeting. I said that it was on the scope. This is all the materials from the meeting up until your section. This is all of the materials for 980 High Street. So to say that the fee waiver, what I'm looking at is the amount of work that our conservation department has to do. And to waive a fee, this includes the site plans for everything that came up into this part. Nobody influenced me. I am new to this commission. When I see this amount of work and the fact that our conservation commission and their conservation department are really good people. We understand we are here for the law. Like, this is not personal. This is not about what we feel about anything. It is the activity in the area under review and how it impacts the wetland. That is our commission. That is what the agency does. And I just want to just be clear that in the case of the fee waiver, it was volume of work that you were asking the department to do.
Well, for me, the question is not the volume of the work, but the specific statements that you make.
No, anybody in the
Well,
room?
do that, but I want to.
We'll make a point of order.
So to make a point of order, commissioners had gave their reasonings for what the commissioner, that's part of, many of the commissioners feel that way, especially for the volume work. There was a fee waiver, it was voted on, and council, you wrote a letter for the record on your position. That's fine. It'll be taking, it's part of the record on both sides now. The applicant has pretty much finalized his portions for the night.
correct.
There are a few more questions left that'll be dealt with at the next meeting. I will open it up again to the public, but constrained to what, this is only the new information. You had a chance to say what was happening at the last time up to that information. Now, based on the new information and the new drawings, please come up. Our minutes from the last meeting, we have a list of people and their address, and they gave public comment. If it's simply the overall idea that it's a bad project, we understand that, or whatever you want to say along those lines. But if it's something technical or something new that you want to talk about, please come up if you're either in support or against, whether you're here or online. But I won't open it up to just that everybody coming back this day at the bad project again without any specific information about the new information, because we did that last time. So I want to keep it moving, but I will, until you're done.
I didn't want to stand up until you were done
Yeah,
speaking.
no, okay.
No, we're-
So
in a
this
second.
meeting, three and anybody.
Now we'll move. All right.
Okay, then we can have public comment on the new information between the engineers. Right, so, those in favor of the application and on the new information that you want to talk about, please come up. In favor? Come on up. Yep, come on up, and you can sit here and if you can, if you go, discuss any of the new aspects of the drawings, of the revised drawings, of any of the comments of, from tonight.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Steve Grothwall. I live at 132 Adley Road in Fairfield. Steve Grothwall, Grathwohl. 132 Adley Road. I had several pages of things I wanted to say, but you won't let me say them now.
No.
That's,
Add it, yes.
I know. I'll be brief.
You can can talk about the larger area, the 1.8 reserve with the conservation easement. You can- Whoa, 0.8, I'm sorry. Did I make it larger? Sorry.
No, it's okay. We can wish.
So-
So
So I am here to urge you to approve the application. I've read David Ginter's January 3rd letter, and I can see no reason to deny the application. And I think the letter demonstrates how hard the applicant is working in order to address all of the concerns. There are just a couple of other things I'd like to
go ahead.
add that there are other concerns for the town, which to me, makes it so important that this application be approved. The town needs lots more different types of housing options. We've got the high end covered. Last year, there were 730 home sales.
Right.
And the median was 810,000. Only 4 more affordable, less than 0.5%. We need more middle income housing, working class, starter housing, affordable housing. Land is hard to find. When it is found, developers come in much quicker than the public sector or a not-for-profit. And so they usually win that. In the town, we've had 19 830G applications. The average size has been 54 units per acre. The median size has been 40 units per acre. This applicant is asking for 16 units per acre. I think that their design is both attractive and appropriate, and I urge you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comment in support?
Someone online, I don't know if they.
Yes, hi, I'm online. I would like to speak in support. My name is Andrew Becker, 228 Buena Vista Road. I own the Becker Companies, which is the maintenance company for the grounds for the Housing Authority for Fairfield and Westport. So I just wanted to touch on a few quick subjects that there were some questions that had come up. The first one being the permeable pavement, and talked about the sand in the winter months. We don't use any sand products. We only use salt. We have done that for the past 7 years at all of their properties in Fairfield and Westport. I also wanted to speak of the rain garden maintenance and conservation area maintenance in all of their housing projects. The Carroll has always given explicit consideration and instructions to maintain the rain gardens, drainage, wetland protections. We
Mr. Becker?
received, yes,
Hello?
yes.
Quick question. Are you employed by the Fairfield Housing?
No, I'm not.
Authority,
I
or-
own a local landscape design build company. We are the maintenance company hired by the property manager and under the direction of Carroll and the housing department. So
Right, okay.
I am also a property owner of multifamily properties and my own residence in Fairfield. So I am a taxpayer and everything else.
Okay, I mean, but that information, I think is already part of the record through your.
It is.
through the
It is.
council.
I only felt that important because you guys mentioned when it's built and they get the CO and people walk away. I just wanted to speak on that. I felt it was important to clarify that that's not what happens. That hasn't been my take, and I'm the one who handles a lot of that. And I just wanted to say that that's not what happens with these. I've seen that happen at other properties we maintain, but I can speak to the housing authority and what their goal is, and it is the upkeep. So, I felt that was important to touch base on. And I just wanted to touch base and say that, I do feel, that this is a good fit for the property. I do feel the town needs affordable housing. I do feel that you're getting 40 units on 40 built versus a typical 10%. And I think that it's important to consider that when looking at the use of the land and why it is important to keep the plan and layout, as designed and proposed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay. Anybody else, here in person or online in support? Okay. Anybody here opposed? Again, under the same parameters. The new information, the conservation easement area, the, the new drainage areas, anything along those lines. Happy to hear it. Otherwise, there were comments at the last meeting, public comments that we have a whole list of all the people and with the comment in the letters. So the commission does understand your position. But if it's for any new technical, please come on up. Right, you're coming right here.
Is it possible to use one of these maps when I ask the question of your plan where the detention basin was going in front?
As long as you don't draw.
I'm not gonna touch it. I just want to paint.
You can point that.
Okay.
You can
So-
comment on that. You can't ask any questions. You can comment on.
Well,
it.
I came in the meeting late, so my question is that there was gonna be a detention basin facing 980 to the. Okay, first question, sure, I don't have to hold a button or anything, okay? My name is James Leask, I reside at 1004 High Street.
Yep.
Fairfield, Connecticut. My first question is, which I didn't get a chance to ask last time. There was mention at one of the meetings that I was at, about the PCP levels in the soil that's surrounding the High Street part or the property and the topsoil being stripped. Living next door, I have a 7-year-old child. And I was just wondering, when the topsoil is going to be stripped, how the dust that's going to be created from doing that is going to be contained from leaving said property and spreading to the adjacent neighbor, the adjacent properties next to it. Our property, our house is, like I said, 18.6 feet away from the stone fence. And it was something that was mentioned, that was mentioned that there were PCPs on the property, but it was somewhat not really in-depthly discussed at that meeting. And then coming in this evening, I heard that there was a detention basin that was supposed to go right in front of where the first building is. So facing 980, you would have the Judd House, you would have the first building, and then right at the corner, there was supposed to be
Well, there's.
a multi.
This is what they presented.
Okay, I'm just wondering,
Issue with.
right, okay, well, what I'm saying is that they said that they were eliminating a basin
They did.
for a multi, year event. I'm just wondering, is that the basin that they were talking about getting rid of? That was gonna tie into the Fairfield sewer line to. That was my first question. No, I didn't say PCP. Well, PCBs, well, pesticides. Right, pesticides were used for multiple years on the property. Okay, no.
So the basin part, they reconfigured the new map of drawing that was provided.
Okay,
There was a detention basin
right here,
along the back side.
right towards High Street.
It was back here behind the properties of
So towards the wetlands over here,
within the wetlands.
within the wetlands.
Issue, and it's been removed. And now it's on the west. Yeah.
Okay,
Now it's west.
Southwest.
okay, so this basin that's up towards High Street is still gonna go in.
The rain garden you're talking about?
No, there's relocated.
This,
Been moved.
the one next to High Street? That's supposed to tie into the sewer line for a 250-year event, is that still going?
Yeah. Oh, between the buildings. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It's still there. Between the buildings.
Between the buildings, okay. All right, so I see it, it's,
Yeah. I'm not sure.
You just have the site plan.
I see it right now. Okay, and then this up in the top corner. Okay, that's an electrical box or something of that nature. One that looks like it's about, I don't know, 30 feet from the center line of the road.
Well, yeah,
Where's the stone fence?
For transmission. Yeah.
All right, so I just was wondering about the pesticides being removed and how that's going to be controlled while it's happening.
Aware that they're there, I'm,
There's a report in here that tells us how it's gonna be dealt with.
everybody to hear that.
What's that?
Everybody to hear that.
How am I aware of this? I did mention at the beginning, I was at, not the last meeting, the meeting prior to that. Correct? That's what you're asking. I'm just wondering, I mean, with the plan that you say, are they going to be hosing down the area as they're removing the
They
said
provided us with
topsoil?
information that's public. I don't think it's appropriate for us now to repeat the plans out loud. The information is here. We will have to review it and, you know,
Okay, I understand
quite
that.
honestly, this
So-
is the time for you to ask us to, you should have read it and come here and say, I don't like this plan because these PCBs are not.
All right, well, I'm just,
Provided the information. The information is there.
and as a layman, I am asking,
Layman.
but that's fine, but you're in charge of looking at those plans. I'm asking you to consider looking at that plan that's before you.
Sure, we will.
With the knowledge that
We're
you
gonna
have.
All the information that's here. That's
And-
part of what we do.
If I have to send an email to somebody and somebody can explain to me how that's going to be taken care of
Yes.
and explained in layman terms, I would appreciate it.
Just as an aside, it's an important aspect of a project and doing this, you know, remediations, but it's really not relevant to our jurisdiction as a wetland agency.
Okay, fine. So who would I ask? Well, I guess this is the end of the road, right?
No, it is not the end of the road, and, you know, they have to get permits from the building department, from other departments, and you know, they're the ones that would be administrating that and make sure it's done correctly.
EPA control, when there's construction projects, EPA is involved in
You can be involved with PCBs, but I don't know if there are PCBs here, but, you know, they have to do this all in accordance with state, federal regulations, and typically that's administered through the building department.
Okay. All right, so do I have to go back and read the minutes as to when it was mentioned and then submit that portion with the email in order to gain attention?
All right, you could just ask your question and submit.
Okay.
You don't have to go back and go, just write the question and submit it to the town.
Sure, Tim would be able to, at some point, to forward it to the building department.
Okay,
Say that this is a question that came up.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
But I honestly, I'm not sure I heard anything about that being on the site. So I don't know where that,
It was mentioned 2 meetings ago.
somebody from the applicant's side mentioned it,
Yes.
that there.
And there was yes, it was mentioned that there was a testing for pesticides on the property and that they are there.
Well, just the-
But that's,
From the prior owner, excuse me, prior to.
different than categorizing it
As
Right.
PCBs, because that's a different class
of,
Okay,
it's really different.
well, chemicals that are in the soil, I don't know how else, okay, yes.
I just recalled it to being a farm and there was farming, you know, fertilizer and things like that were there. So, yeah, okay. So your concern is simply,
Well, I mean, in the past pesticides would be PCB, I mean, back in this.
This is very specific, field, and you have to be very specific with the language, because all the regular, ordinances that the federal government don't cover PCBs. It's covered under a totally different ordinance from the federal government, and it heightens it up. That's one of the problems that the town has already encountered. So I just want to be very careful when we use to throw terms around, that we just don't throw them around, without having the right use of them.
any action, if we were to approve this, the next step for them, and I asked that earlier, like what do you do next?
Right.
They would need to go and get their permits from the building department And those, there are folks and other agencies, and those folks go out and are on them as well. So you'll be able to discuss with those folks, the building department and other agencies, on how they move forward. How do they dig those things out? How do they build things? And is it in a safe environment for them, for the builders, for the people that are going to live there, and for the neighbors? So you'll have an opportunity to talk to other people about that issue. We're just wetlands.
Okay.
Water. Is there any issue with what they build affects the water or the water courses? That's kind of overlooking. Okay, all right, okay.
All right, thank you.
Any further? Yes, please, coming up in opposition.
Sure. Hi, my name's Elizabeth Altobelli. I reside at 76 Country Road. Thank you again to the commission for your thorough efforts. And thank you. I know everyone is trying thoroughly here. I'm a resident in the town of Fairfield. I pay heavy taxes. My property is right here. Okay, so I have all the inland wetlands. You know, I can read all these things I have, but at the end of the day, this is pertinent to the commission and what's happening. So if you just, with all due respect, give me a second. It is without doubt, I support many building opportunities, scaled projects, developments. I work with many builders in town. I work with many developers, and I have statements from many builders who have proposed applications in front of the town of Fairfield right now that are not proposing 830G and are still profitable. And they are there is one or several in front of the town at this time that has a 9-unit parcel. So they're proposing 9 units on a 2-acre parcel on Reef Road, which is a high density area. We all know where Reef Road is, right? We understand it's highly populated, highly dense, 2 acres, and they're proposing 9 units. Now, this builder clearly states that he's not a pig. He's not going to override town regulations. He respects the integrity of the town rules and the town regulations. He has respect for that, okay? He has respect for that. And as we all should, we pay to live in a wonderful town with development that should occur with scaled projects. It is unfortunate that we have 40 units going in, shoved in an area that's going to be disturbed. And I'm sorry, but Attorney Leclerc, you're incorrect. There are meadows and wetlands that have families of deer. There are 20 deer. There are bobcats. I see them every day. Cardinals, blue jays, bobcats. There are, I don't even know what else, fox. There are 20 deer that go in and out of the meadow onto my property, 76 Country Road, where Mr. Kenny had actually proposed and wrote a delineation report, which stated that drainage and the soil had extremely poor drainage for the soil. So, you know, that begs the question, if I pay a professional to give me a report and then someone else pays a professional to give a report, they can conflict. So I clearly have this evidence. Beside that, thirdly, fourthly, however you want to put it, you know, there are 40 units going there. That means there's going to be at least 100 people living on site. It's a tiny space. We're going to have extreme traffic issues. Beside that, what I'd like to know from this applicant is they're claiming it's a nonprofit. However, they've been going forward with this for many years, I think over 4 years. There is an attorney, there is an architect, there's a soil scientist, there's a civil engineer. I want to know the cost. I want this on record. I want the financial concerns on record.
Unfortunately, that doesn't have anything to do.
But it does have to do with the land health directly. The cost of everything is going to impact the land health.
Related to the
Okay,
maps.
respectfully, fine.
Yeah.
That's it.
What is it
done.
that you'd like to
That's it.
bring to our?
So what I'd like to know is the investment so far from the team here that sits behind us.
So,
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
with regard to the updated maps and the mostly, it was more technical tonight than anything. Last week or last month, I'm sorry, was the overall comments that you made now, and any others
Sure.
had made that. So we did hear that.
Okay.
We understand that.
Okay.
Heard that, and that's part of the
Okay.
record.
it begs the question though, how it could be a nonprofit when this is forthcoming. So
Ma'am,
really,
I'm
let's,
gonna have to ask you,
okay.
if there's no more technical information that you'd like to give, or you don't like where the case is, or something along those lines.
I do have one more technical point. I have a report from the soil scientist that states that the soil will not drain, is a poor, how do I say this?
Okay.
The soil does not drain
That's
properly.
better. You
Okay.
have the report with you.
I do. It was submitted to Mr. Bishop.
Okay, so we
So
have.
that's on record. So this is the property in question. This is what I'm talking
Okay,
about.
wait, hold on. Went too fast. You said you had some documentation, some soil report. Is that right?
Yeah.
Submitted to the commission.
I did.
You gave it to, you emailed it or?
Yeah,
or-
it's a wetlands and delineation report. So my question is,
You did it before this meeting?
I had hired Mr. Kenny 2 years ago for 76 Country Road, which is all of the wetlands in question. And a report was specifically done.
So
And now the
that's for
report, the report changes, shifts. So I just want that on record.
That's, okay, great.
Well, I don't, it's,
We have that. We have it. So
Yeah.
we have it on the record.
Yeah.
Now you pointed it out to us. That's good.
so I would love if the commission would also again review that. That would be, since you're the experts, I appreciate that. You look out for us. And ultimately, this will affect the groundwater because there is soil that will not drain properly. And it's unfortunate that when I hear these vendors state, yes, that is my professional opinion, and that it will drain properly, when we know it will not, and it will cause flooding. And ultimately, all of the town and all of the neighboring streets on Oakwood, Woodcrest, as well as Country Road will be affected. Ultimately, that will cause an appeal, and that will cause suits and actions to be taken personally against each and every member if that does occur. And that,
Which member? Which member?
no, not you. I'm saying the applicant,
We're the members.
okay, the applicants, if that happens. So it's unfortunate that if this gets built
Yeah.
and then we have some poor, if we have flooding and groundwater, excessive groundwater and drainage, and if my property starts to flood, as well as every other members of the abutting properties that we see here, right? The abutting properties. I mean, there's no other, how else can we rectify this? We have to,
I'll tell you something,
and these are questions coming from everyone. It's
when
me.
someone comes before me and says, look, I don't care what the expert says, my yard floods. I think that's valid.
Great. Okay.
It-
Sure. And that's all I'm trying to make. I hope
Call
to,
that technical or not technical, but I will tell you that for myself, I place weight on someone who says, this is where I live, these are my eyes,
sure.
this is what happens.
Right.
That's all.
And that's all I wanted to say. I understand the nature of building and development, and I'm almost in support of something, a quarter of the size. But the level of 40 units and what they're proposing is just excessive. And it goes way over the town regulations. And there, we have reasons. We have town ordinance for a reason. We have zoning regulations.
So yeah, we're.
I know, we're past this.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
I believe you're, from a technical point, it seems to me what you're saying is that 100 people will have some sort of impact on this wetlands in the future, regardless what anyone says.
Correct.
To me, you're saying that as a technical observation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's correct. Thank you for summarizing.
Thank you.
You have the knowledge much better than I do.
It's just,
I appreciate that. And thank you again for taking the time, everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Anybody else opposed? Well, again, try to keep it constrained to the information that was new, that was provided today. Please come on up, state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Lauren Hess. I live at 5 Woodcrest Road. So I'm at the corner of Woodcrest and High. My driveway actually comes on like 3 driveways down from where the Judd property is. I appreciate you guys hearing us out tonight. I thought we had opportunity to speak from the last meeting still, so I'll try and keep it to the purview now. I did just want to thank Commissioner Bowen specifically. My main reason in speaking here tonight is I just felt I would be remiss if I didn't go on the record and speak for the animals who don't have voices. It's what keeps me up at night in regards to this development. And we kept hearing the council ask, there will be no adverse effect on the wetlands, correct? And I feel as though the animals and their lives should be included in the definition of wetlands, and you guys did address that tonight, so I appreciate that, and saying habitat as well. And you guys acting as the environmental conscience of the community. It is something that's unfortunate. It's naive to think that no development will occur on this piece of property in the years going forward. I have concerns, as do many of my neighbors, regarding the scale of this project, specifically in regards to the wildlife that we see every day. And it was interesting, the day after the meeting, last month in December, there was an article posted in the New York Times entitled "Animals Are Running Out of Places to Live," and it was written by a professor of biodiversity science at Yale. So that is really why I read that, prompted me to come forward tonight. So I appreciate that as well. My background additionally as well, my husband spoke at the last meeting. I was an underwriter for a property and casualty insurance company. My area of focus was actually South Shore, Long Island, so Hamptons, and insuring the homes out there obviously came with flood and stormwater was a heightened area of risk for us as we were underwriting. And it was also brought up tonight that, you know, the 1 in 100 year storm is not 1 in 100 years anymore. And we discussed last time as well that on many homeowners insurance policies, so for our homes in the neighborhood as the homeowners, flood and stormwater drainage is not included in your homeowner's insurance policy. It's an endorsement or a separate flood policy that you do have to purchase. What also comes with stormwater is you have mold remediation as well. So I can't speak for everyone here, but I do have a heightened concern given the flooding that occurs at my own property is will we have to bear the cost of that? And I appreciate your review of this project and thoroughly in reviewing that as we move forward. So those are my 2 areas of concern, and I thank you for hearing me out.
Record, we heard it, and it'll be, you know, one more thing that we think of when we make our decision.
Thank you.
That's the same thing I like hearing from someone who says with my own eyes, to what Dabney says and to what you said, ma'am. I thought there were 3 deer there. I've been to the site I think 5 times now, and I see what I thought was the same 3 deer. I know that's not what we're supposed to be worried about, but you say 20 walking through your yard. I respect that. I don't know how that fits in. I can't regard that, but just so you know, you've been heard. And when you say there's 20, I believe that there's 20.
Somebody from my. Please state your name.
My name is Kathy Allen. I live at 67 Oakwood Drive. So I live, and I guess I abut the property. I have a question. I was an intervener last time. So question for you. Last time this was denied, one of the reasons, was the drainage, which we've addressed tonight. The other thing was the size of the building in the review area. It was asked to be reduced. That hasn't been addressed at all. Is that going to be addressed in another meeting? Is it a non-issue anymore? That's one of my questions. The second one.
You're saying there's a building where in the.
Well, it wasn't, one of the original denials was because of the size. They wanted to reduce it. I don't know, is it the review area? It's
Upland review area.
Right.
There's a building B2, a portion of it
I think in the last application, it just cut the corner.
Right. So now, I mean, we haven't even addressed a change in the building, right? Like, this is the same proposal that we're looking at from 3 years ago.
It's been moved and he's
It's moved?
it's been moved, so it's a,
Outside the line.
yeah, so if you, you can.
So we shifted a little bit outside of that area.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I didn't know that just by looking at the site. Okay.
What seems to be within the upland review area is the fire truck turnaround
Mm-hmm.
area.
Okay.
And I'm assuming some sort of wall or something. Yeah. So that's what's there now. So it is similar to the prior application, but it's not identical.
Not identical. Okay. The other question I have for you is, originally this was filed as a 40 affordable housing. Now we have the word in front of it called assisted. I don't, or whatever, what is the rationale for that? Okay, but we're not, zoning's already approved this supposedly, so,
That's a question that was for zoning, not for this
Right.
commission.
okay,
So somebody builds something, if it was approved for one use and it's done something else, that's an issue for zoning.
okay,
Maybe the two fall under the same category, I don't know, but.
right,
that
nor
was
do we.
something
Okay, for
that
zoning, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, yep, come on
Yes,
up.
sir. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm James Posey, lucky husband of Warren Hess, who just spoke.
Oh, yeah, you
Also-
spoke last time, sir.
Yes, I did. I made a statement. I just have a quick questions for you guys as I'm getting educated on all of your expertise. So, and it's on pertinent newer information.
One more time, James Posey from.
James Posey, 5 Woodcrest Road,
Thank
corner of Woodcrest and High Street. So earlier tonight, the lawyer asked Mr. Kenny if the wetland is a vernal pool. Based on his assessment and the independent inspector, it's not a vernal pool. My understanding, it's a very big deal in this space as I'm learning myself. My question is it possible that this wetland was once a vernal pool? And
So I want to, I'm giving a lot of leeway here on this date. This is where, in a hearing like this, you need to give me that information. We had our own guy go, they had their guy go, and we have information. We're not experts. We don't know anything. We need to get the information. If you got a guy that says it's a vernal pool, bring it to us. And then we'll have 3 people, 2 of them say it's not and 1 say it is. We don't know any of that.
okay,
So I understand it's a new world, vernal pool.
sure.
Learn what it is.
Yeah.
But that's not our, we're here to do the best that we can with the information that's been provided to us. We don't go independently and look at anything ourselves. We don't go and have discussions after this all on our own. It's got to be done here within the framework of the public hearing. So if you have some information that says this is the worst plan in the world and here's why, give it to us. Or if you have information that says this is the best plan in the world and here's why, gotta give it to us. We're not here to answer your questions. And I'm not trying to be mean to you or anybody else, but it's a public hearing where evidence needs to be presented before the board. The applicant presented evidence. We even did our due diligence and had somebody else come in and we had some questions. One of them was the vernal pool question. We had an expert go out and give us his expert opinion. So if you have something that you want to give us that says what they said is wrong and here's why, that's evidence that we can use to make our determination. So I remember last time you had great input about the insurance and the flooding, and that was very helpful. This is just now superfluous. You're just adding on to more stuff. We know it. We heard it. So if there's something new from anybody regarding the new design, where the drainage went, where the basin's going to go, something like that, we want to hear. If it's, we don't like this anymore and it's going to affect we know it's going to affect your homes, or at least that's what you say is going to happen. I don't know. But that their application says it's not. Somebody else says, everybody else says, yes, it will. That's going to be, then the next step for us is going to be we're going to have a discussion and talk about it. Some people will talk about the animals, some people will talk about the deer, we'll talk about the buildings, we'll talk about, well, I don't know, I don't like that, or I do like that, and then we're gonna make a vote. We're gonna vote on it.
I appreciate that. So let me add. I believe after hearing rainfalls increasing over time, vernal pools can develop naturally or with man-made minor intervention due to one of the factors of increased precipitation. I would like to bring that to attention to this body and review this project based on the current wetland and the propensity of the wetland becoming a vernal pool.
This is
With that
gonna
information.
be continued to the next meeting. You present something to us, it'll be part of the record. If you can find an
I
expert.
just presented some facts,
Okay.
so
Thank you.
maybe I will document it up for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Coming up, any further in support opposed to it, based on the new information?
This is Heather Dabrowski. I'm online. Is it okay if I speak?
Yes, okay. Yeah, hold on.
We have some other demo.
So I want to take the online, and we've been here the whole time. So Heather, please continue to tell us your name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Heather Dabrowski and I live at 75 Millendale Road. And I have a question, Commissioner Thomas, about what you had mentioned about the vernal pool and all that, because in 2019, the Conservation Department wrote a very thorough report stating that there was a vernal pool. And I know that it's been discussed and we hired a third party and all that, but it seems to be very subjective, whether there is or is not. And
That was, ma'am, so
Yeah.
this is an application that was submitted now, two separate applications. In this application, it's a whole new commission, and we knew nothing about the 2019 reports or anything like that. And that's why the applicant provided his expert, and then we, as a body, wanted to be, more, to understand the issue more. So we hired somebody, and that report that we got now that we have, we're obligated to look at that, and do with it what we want. But the report that we got this time in this application says it was not a vernal pool. So if you want to say, well, there was a report in 2019, you have it, submit it. We're not, these applications don't go by the property in the sense that an application from 10 years ago is still something that we can look at. It's got to be within the framework of the public hearing that we have right now. So it was this meeting, 2 meetings ago, the last meeting, and there's going to be one more meeting. So if there's a way for you to get that report and you want to submit it, then it'll be part of the record and we will then be obligated to look at it.
okay, so then let me ask you one question about something that I believe I heard today in this meeting, was that one of the engineers said that the drainage basin would create a wetland. And if that's the case, wouldn't the applicant be impeding upon that newly created wetland?
Wetland, well, he's creating the basin. I mean, it's what? It's gonna be, so it's not that it's creating a new wetland. He's telling us that he's got to do it because we're asking him to do it. And he was just describing what would be there, what soil, not soil, trees are gonna go around it, what's gonna be there to, I think Commissioner Payne had talked about it a little bit, about what would be on the sides of it.
Yep.
So it's not so much of.
Theory, it's possible in an application 15 years from now, that
Right.
it's classified as what?
Will be classified as a wetland going forward, but right now it's a stormwater adjunct.
Yeah. So there was terminology used, it's wetland, but it really is just part of the stormwater and the drainage report.
Okay, I appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir,
Hi,
name and address, please, for the record.
my name is Noah Ittman. I live at 41 Oakwood Drive, which is just across the Judd Estate from where Elizabeth lives. So we're abutting as well. I forgot the exact name, the ring soil sample. I spoke with Steve Trinkus about that and was informed that that measures water absorption or dispersion over time, not necessarily in high volume. And I think that with the 100-year floods being more and more frequent, that the volume really needs to be considered here because we're, as Steve Trinkus really well illustrated, we're not looking at a slow drainage. We're looking at a high impact, high volume of water in a short time. And all of the soil samples that are being measured are over a duration of time. So I think that that just ought to be factored in. I also noted that among the people who spoke in favor of the project, of which there's been now two as of this third meeting, one of them, Andrew Becker, has a clear financial tie to this project, and the other person who did give his name didn't disclose any information if there's a connection or not, but because he provided his name and address, I just hope that you guys will look into that.
Well, no, we're not gonna look into it. Everybody has a right to come and give their information. If
Is there a requirement to disclose any financial relationship?
I'm not that I'm aware of, but,
Because you guys asked.
he said what he was. He said what he was. And
He did, but the other gentleman, I don't know if he was or wasn't.
Well, I mean, you know, it's okay. Yeah, he doesn't, he doesn't have public code. When I had asked him, and saying that again, I just thought maybe he was part of the application that came late or something, and maybe council wanted to talk to him, but it wasn't. So he has the right to say what he wants to say.
Okay.
I just didn't know if it was supplemental information.
Or more in favor too in the.
Yeah, well, right, that's true. So this is the public comment, but people have written letters and that's part of it. It's public, that's part of the record. They just didn't want to come and say anything. There's more people that were in favor of it. They just didn't come and speak. So we read these letters and it's public. You can go and look at them too. They're online.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
That's it.
very good. Okay, thank you. Anyone else, can you come on up in opposition? Your name and address, please.
Hi, all. Hi. Thanks for your time and attention. I know this is a lot for you to do, and I appreciate. My name is Margaret Driscoll. I spoke last time. I'm at 56 Country Road, so I'm directly south. My fence is abutting I think it's the second building in from High Street. I did have 9 or 10, there's a baby deer in my yard 3 weeks ago, so there is definitely more than 3. And I will echo the wildlife comment. However, I know that you said that we would like to stick to things that are new and relevant. One thing from what Noah just said, I would like on the record, if we can ask the town attorney if there's anything about disclosing who speaks, if we could I just wanted to state that on the record that I'm curious about that question.
Anybody can speak about anything.
Okay.
If 10 employees from the housing authority wanted to come and say, hey, it's a great place, I do good work, they can say that.
And that's a great point because we can all speak. And I think that I understand that there's a lot of people talking. It probably sounds repetitive, but I just like to remind the commission that, as you know, but I'd like to say this on the record as well, because I know Attorney Leclerc spent hours putting things on the record. We all each get to put our own opinions on the record. I literally look at that property. That's my backyard. So I have a very personal connection to it. I see all of it. So there are no other eyes and ears. Maybe the people on Oakwood have I don't have trees so I'm the person looking at this property. This is our home. This is our livelihood. This is my financial investment. And I just want to.
Wait, for you to handle all this is the email within.
I know, I just wanted to state.
We read all these letters.
Yes, thank you. But I know that there's a lot of people speaking and that you want to hear relevant things. I just wanted to restate, this is our opportunity as people who don't do this, know this, but it's like, this is my literal investment, me personally investing in this property. So people's finances and their livelihood and their home, it's very passionate. So I just want to say that for the record as well.
Right. And
We're not here to cause problems or to be repetitive.
no, you're not causing problems.
Because that's what it feels like. We're cut off on time. And I think we should all have a voice as well. And this is our opportunity.
Yeah, well,
But I'll tell you what, we read the letters, we read the letters.
there was
Thank you.
also, yes, okay.
All right. So 2 questions, just procedurally and technically after some things tonight. One is, I know you asked Attorney Leclerc, what is the next steps and what they have to go through. I'm curious because I spoke with the police sergeant at Fairfield Police Department in terms of traffic, and he said that at the zoning approval in terms of safety, I'm just curious procedurally, they said the police would get involved with the safety, so the reasonable and prudent issue of this, I'm curious just how the procedure works procedurally.
So, police and the fire, that was all done at zoning. They approved on it. They had a police report, they had a traffic study, they had the fire department come in. That's all done on the zoning.
Okay, I'll look into it because he said he didn't think it was.
It was. So
Okay.
Sure, Attorney Leclerc had the traffic study done with a traffic engineer. This is done at every zoning. I know I was on that commission for 8 years. and
Okay. Oh, great. I'll look into that. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for answering. I know that wasn't relevant and I'm sure that wasn't relevant. Okay, thank you.
No, I have one question. I wanted to know if you go back to.
What happens, right? Because there's a lot of changes over time and what do they have to approve?
For me, I am an attorney, so that, once he said, no, I'm done with zoning, I'm just here. At that point, there's nothing left for me to ask any.
And just to put our point on the record, there's nothing left for us to do after this either. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's not true. There was
So-
another gentleman that's here. You can still deal with the building department to make sure they do it the right way,
Yeah.
make sure there's not a lot of noise. They don't start at 7 a.m. They can only start at 8, whatever, but
Okay.
those things are still there. You're still, honestly, they're part of the community.
I agree.
So it's not gonna be, build it, dump it and get out. So, I think they have a vested interest in doing the right thing as well. Now, we just have to decide if what they're doing is gonna affect the wetlands.
Right.
And to a degree, would expand to animals or other habitats that are there.
And thank you for your consideration. I appreciate all of you. And my final comment is, I am in favor of housing. I am in favor of development. I am in favor of things that are reasonable and prudent. And my opposition to this project is that it's neither of those, in my opinion. And so I'd like that on the record as well. And so there's a reasonability issue. It's not reasonable in my mind to have 40 units in my backyard, literally a 3-story building, 10 feet behind my fence to look at all day. That's not reasonable. There could be another solution. And I understand that FHC is a profitable entity. So it's in their best use of this property, which they've been investing resources in for 4 years to make this profitable. And apparently 40 units is their threshold. That to me isn't reasonable. And I just want that on the record. So thank you.
I point out also that, everybody here is aware that there are people that don't come to speak. It's not always easy to come and speak in front of a body. So if you don't want to do that, write a letter. We'll keep saying we get them and
Get 'em.
everybody reads them. They are not, it always makes me feel bad. I've been at other meetings and
Tim, I have to give Tim credit here. Whenever the letter comes in, it's almost immediate. I'm at my desk at the office and thank you for your letter. He tells us who it is. It's attached there too, with all the commissioners' names. And I stop my day for 2 minutes. I read it and it's here, so we do get it.
All July inboxes.
clients when you're reading all these letters.
Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Peter Holmes. I live at 145 Oakwood Drive, around the corner from the Judd property. I wrote a whole thing, but I will attempt to abridge it to help.
You have
you guys.
something written. Did you email that to Tim?
No, I emailed him something a little bit different 2 months ago, and he responded to me.
Sure, yeah.
But I'll attempt to keep this. I don't have any questions, just comments, and I'll attempt to keep it conservation related. I have a couple of concerns. The first is flooding. My backyard floods when it's a heavy rain. It doesn't, my basement fortunately stays dry, but I'm concerned that things may change. I've heard anecdotes in the neighborhood of people's basements who did not previously flood, and then there was development and now their basement floods. I certainly would not like that to happen to my basement. I'm concerned about those large trees that might come down. The maples, the pines, the hemlocks, the cedars, tulip trees. I mean, it's one thing to say only a handful of trees are coming down. It's another thing to say there are some humongous trees that are coming down, because large trees provide a lot of service. and they do it for free. And to replace those with a man-made system that might work, we won't know until it's actually implemented. You know, I have concerns about that. I'm concerned about the wildlife, the flora and the fauna. The fauna, everyone mentioned the animals. In addition to those, bobcats, coyotes, both of which are sighted on our street all the time. Fishers, which I've seen, which have recently been reintroduced to Western Connecticut. And I had a fisher come through my yard a couple months ago. I didn't even know what it was. I had to Google it. Some herons. I have eastern redback salamanders in my yard. I'm 200 yards from the Judd wetland, and I would imagine, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that they live there as well. All of these animals will disappear at the first sign of a bulldozer. So when the question is asked, what is the plan to help the wildlife? I don't know that there really could possibly be one. If I were a deer, I would take off instantly. I mean, those machines are scary from their point of view. So I would expect all of the wildlife to disappear. And you know, from a broader perspective of the wildlife, the Judd property is to my knowledge, the largest haven for wildlife in our neighborhood. We have a few other smaller woods areas like the Mary Katona open space. People walk through with dogs all the time. It's much smaller. The Judd property gets no human interaction, which I think is one of the key elements that the wildlife, that the animals love. And that's why we have so much of it there. If that goes, I don't know where they're going to go. I don't think there is another spot for them to go that isn't disrupted by humans. The discussion about invasive species, I'm skeptical about the management of that. I only know 3 ways to handle invasive species. One is chemical herbicides. 2 is rip them out with your hands, which most flora will not allow you to do because their roots are so strong. I mean, you could dig in with a machine, but you're disrupting the land. And the 3rd is to just constantly go down year after year after year until the roots run out of energy. And that takes a lot of, man hours, and you got to pay for that. So, and, some species are just, aggressive. Oriental bittersweet, porcelain berry. I mean, they come back year after year. They don't go away. So I'm skeptical about that. I'm concerned about the pollution, that most of the discussion has focused only on the pollution during construction. I wonder what will happen 10, 20 years down the road. A lot of tenants in this complex to the wetlands, contaminants from vehicles that just run down slopes with rain, trash that blows with the wind, things blow in. And I worry about how that will manage. The fact is, human beings create trash and they create contamination. So the closer you are to that stuff, the more people you have, the more that's going to happen. That's just human nature. And I have a little bit of concern about noise pollution from vehicles and AC condensers, light pollution from a large facility like this that keeps lights on all night.
Keep it towards the,
Okay.
got the gist of it, just to let you know.
Sure. Yep. And that's largely it. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Okay, coming up, name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Jessica Itman. Do I have to press something?
Nope. You can down and.
I live at 41 Oakwood Drive. I would just like to express my concern about the future of this development, as its proximity to the wetlands would require a certain level of care and maintenance to ensure the protection of the wetlands. Ms. Martin may be a good custodian of her existing properties, but there is a certainty that she will not forever be the director of Fairfield Housing Authority.
Eventually, a new director will step in, potentially one who is less invested in maintaining the property or the wetlands. It is even possible that once built, the property will be sold. We can't know who the next steward or owner will be,
So.
or their level of commitment.
Yeah, I want to make something clear. Maybe somebody here understand one of the things that was discussed tonight was this conservation easement. So 0.8, a little less than an acre of an acre. That conservation, the legal document recorded in the land records, and that gives the conservation department the right to manage and go and say, hey, you need to do something here because there's.
So if they don't maintain the impervious pavement or check the
easement. Specific area. Of the area of the tree, well, there's the whole area, like this area here.
Yes, I understand.
That-
But
that
say-
is- That stays and it's conserved.
But say the impervious pavement of the 50 parking spaces gets clogged with sand and they don't check those traps that they talked about.
Approval from planning and zoning,
Right. That's
that they
already been
improve that,
approved.
they approve, they have to maintain that as part of
And
the
honestly,
operations
simply cost-
manual.
Costs less for them to maintain it every year than to not do it and then have a huge bill to repair it, because that wouldn't be us, but they would need to repair it based upon the approvals from zoning and what we, it's gotta be the same way. If they do something different that affects wetlands again, they gotta come back to us.
Okay,
So
so the town checks all of that.
there are checks in place. If something really bad happens, the town usually, if it's running normally, there's not much of that the town needs to do.
So
So if you see somebody cutting down 10 trees in the conservation area, well, you're gonna call the town and we have the ability to do something about it.
yes, I understand. I'm just concerned that in the future, because I understand that Ms. Martin's good at maintaining her properties, and I appreciate that. And if this goes forward, I will appreciate that. I'm more worried that this is her job. She's not going to have this job forever. You don't know who the next person is going to be. And I just want to make sure that the next person is then responsible for these systems, because it's 100 people potentially living less, like a few yards away from this wetlands. And if these systems aren't maintained the way that they need to be maintained, that is going to impact them. That's all. That's all I want to say.
I would say that as objective evidence, if you visit the Pine Tree Apartments, couldn't ask for more. That evidence is there, and I think that's.
Saying that
That's.
I'm not saying
You
they're.
don't know what happens to any of us tomorrow, but it's the best that we can do. This is the system that we have. We're doing the best. House is gonna move in to replace it. Thank you. Okay, great. All right,
Brought something up, I have to.
yeah.
And I was actually quite reticent to even speak and bring this up because
Okay,
it's,
name and address.
sorry, Elin Anderson.
Yep.
136 Borowski Drive.
Okay.
I was reticent to bring this up because it's really hearsay at this point. I don't even know this person that well. She's a friend of my friend, but she lives at Pine Tree Apartments and she has a lot of huge issues with her sewage, people not coming. And I didn't want to bring it up because again, it's hearsay.
Our, it's not our,
But you just brought, like, we're talking about what she just said. And the thing is,
What we were talking, right.
right there, that's an.
I'm on the outside. All you can do is look at the property from the outside and it appears to be.
I've only heard this.
Again, that our jurisdiction is simply inland wetlands, anything that deals with water courses, and wetlands.
But if properties aren't maintained and then they affect water courses such as off of High Street, because they're not actually gonna maintain what they say they're gonna maintain, let's say even 5 years down the road, that it does come
It's
into.
a violation. And
Yeah.
you call the town and Tim will go out there and say, you're violating, and they'll have to fix it.
I was actually worried, I'm just thinking about saying this because I can't even say the person's name because
There's no
affordable
need to
housing.
say any name in
I
front of-
don't want her to lose her home.
Are there even wetlands over there? I have no idea.
it doesn't matter.
At Pine Tree? Yeah, there are.
That's, that
That's just my one.
sewer issue, have your friend call the town,
Yeah.
DPW, somebody,
Mhm.
That's what's.
Okay, I just,
Thank you.
following through with things. It's kind of an issue.
Motion to.
Wait, I want to. I'd just like to inform everyone that's here tonight and those that are listening that as Chair pointed out, the department sends us emails and written letters promptly, and we read every one of them. I like to say words go away, which sometimes they do. But if you spoke tonight or didn't have the opportunity to speak tonight, put something in writing, email it to the town. You will read it, you will be recognized.
And again, when you do send it, the name and your address. I will close the public comment section of the public hearing now. This actually, public hearing itself will be continued to the next meeting. All of our future meetings at this building, we're not over there anymore at the Board of Ed. And don't anticipate the next one being very long, because it's going to be a handful of questions that they're going to be answering. And then once, so it's clear, once we close the public hearing, we may not vote tonight. We have some time to think about it and vote as commission members. So if you were anticipating coming just to see what our vote is at the next meeting, it may not occur. It may, I might, I have no idea. But I just want to be clear about what our parameters are, okay? All right, yeah.
What is the vote? Is it a unanimous vote for your commission? Is it?
Majority. George, we have 7, so four. And based on the motion that's offered by a member. Seconded.
Maybe there won't be a motion.
All right, well, thank you on that one. We still have 2 more things, but we'll finish them up quickly.
So,
We can't simply not act.
no, and we not acting would be an act, be an automatic approval.
Anymore. I gave that up. I'll just call it.
Can you do that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. I can.
Can you
Yeah,
check it?
On motion.
I'm done.
Well, no, well, when you got the feel of the room. Yeah. What do we got? All right, we got, really, it's a quick other, schedule a date to reconvene the subcommittee to review the proposed IWWR, the fees, the regulations, the changes. Tim, you want to briefly touch on that? Or?
Yeah, I did work that out with,
Yeah.
and,
I already gave a lot of this stuff last year to Tim.
Sorry.
Last month and basically it's, back to the.
yeah, I wanted to.
Yeah.
Put it on the record and set a date that way.
We want to
It's not right.
You can just do that,
Yeah.
emails. All right, what, do you really want a motion? Go ahead. Motion.
No,
Go for it.
I'll call you, you're on TV.
All right.
Call it.
We're done.
To adjourn.
That's it. It's all done. Done.